Hey everyone, Anime Scar here. Season 2 is about to hit real hard. But before we jump in, we need to go back and see how it all kicked off in Season 1. This regular dude wakes up, but damn, he looks like he's in mad pain with tears streaming down his face. He glances around and sees people straight up clowning and laughing at him. Then, out of nowhere, this prince decides to give him a parting gift before offering himself. He tells the regular dude to bust out some magic, and the dude desperately tries to attack the prince. He throws his arms up, trying to shoot a massive flame at the prince, but all he can manage is a weak-ass flame that barely even scratches the prince. Everyone starts roasting his pathetic magic skills, and the prince can't believe there's a regular dude so damn weak. He's disappointed that's all the regular dude could muster. He remembers the words of this wise dude named William Bordeaux, who said that for a mage, the most important things are their lineage, talent, and smarts. But he tells the regular dude not to get it twisted because hard work is a major factor too, and no amount of that can make up for a lack of talent. As he preps his attack, he straight up tells the regular dude that magic isn't going to smile on someone as insignificant as him. He unleashes his fiery magic on the regular dude, who gets engulfed in flames right away. The dude screams in agony as he turns into ash, but then he starts grinning like crazy because he's in awe of the prince's sick magic. He realizes the power behind the magic a noble wields, and he can't help but admire its beauty from his magical perspective. He wishes he learned more about magic and mastered it when he was still alive. With his dying breath, he prays for another shot at experiencing the thrill of such magic. Suddenly, he wakes up and peeps a bunch of maids holding toys all around him. He's like, who the hell are these peeps, and where am I? He thinks they're giant enemies and decides to defend himself. He tries to cast a fire spell, but realizes his hands are freaking tiny. By accident, he casts a fire spell that straight up blasts through the castle roof like fireworks, announcing his birth. A town crier runs through the kingdom, spreading the news about the birth of the 7th prince of the Saloon Kingdom, posting up posters and all that. Everyone in the village is stoked to witness such an epic day. Meanwhile, the maids at the castle are losing their minds over the chaos caused by the newborn baby. But the baby just grins like a little troublemaker, proud of wrecking the castle with his baby powers. Fast forward a few years, and life in the kingdom goes on as usual while some maids search all over the castle for the prince. They scour one part but can't find him, so they decide to move their search to another area. As soon as they leave, the prince sneaks out of his hiding spot, ready to dip from the castle. But then, two dudes pop up and start calling his name. Prince Lloyd freezes and signals them to be quiet so the maids don't hear them. He straight up tells the dude to act like he never saw him, and the dude agrees to keep his trap shut. He asks Lloyd if he wants to roll with them on a hunt, but Lloyd just bounces, leaving the dude talking to himself. Once the dude realizes Lloyd is trying to sneak away, he calls out to him, but Lloyd isn't saying a word. The dude is bummed that the prince has dipped again, but his homie tells him that Lloyd is the 7th prince, which means he isn't in the running for the crown. He can't understand why the dude is going through all this trouble to win his favor. The dude reminds his homie that the prince could speak right after being born, was reading spell books instead of kids' picture books, and even refused breast milk like a true gentleman. He thinks the prince is the reincarnation of the legendary sage William Bordeaux. His homie tells him it's straight up ridiculous to think the prince is a reincarnation of the sage. The prince rushes down the castle stairs and realizes the dude was right about him being a reincarnation. He remembers he was just a regular dude in his past life, but he has no clue because his memories are still intact. While the maids search for him in the castle, he wonders why he got reborn as some privileged 7th son in a royal family. Even though he was born into royalty, he isn't planning on chasing their glory ambitions. He's sticking to his ambitions from his past life and wants to see how much epic magic he can uncover in the palace. He steps into the royal library and gets hyped to see all those magical books stacked on the shelves. He's blown away by the collection because it beats the Magic Academy back in his old life. He grabs a book off the shelf and cracks it open, but bam, someone appears right behind him. Silpha snatches the book from his hands, pissed that he tried to escape from the maids. They start clashing swords, and Lloyd manages to hold his own against her for a bit, but eventually she pushes him back. He tells her he hasn't got a shot at the throne since he's the 7th, so he doesn't need any sword lessons. Silpha tells him there's more to life than just being next in line for the throne. She reminds him that as part of the royal family, he needs to know how to handle a sword. Teaching him sword skills has been her gig for the past 3 years, ever since she was put in charge of his education. Lloyd realizes Silpha won't let up on his training unless he steps up his game. They decide to get back to their sword practice, and Silpha notices that Lloyd is getting stronger every damn day. Lloyd isn't tripping about her compliment because he knows she's holding back. He's low-key using control-type magic to track Silpha's moves, so she's battling a clone of herself. He's straight-up cheating so he can ditch the practice and get back to his books. They keep going at it, but Silpha still comes out on top. Lloyd realizes that even though he can copy her moves, she still outmatches him in arm strength, stamina, and height. Copying her techniques isn't enough. He's at a disadvantage and bound to lose. He decides to experiment with cheating to level the playing field. He uses magic to extend his sword length and boost his physical strength. He even uses levitation to make up for the height difference. He goes back at it with Silpha, and this time he can keep up. He's confident his magic enhancements will lead him to victory. They keep sparring, but Lloyd decides to play his trump card and pull off an unexpected move. He unleashes his trace magic, mimicking Silpha's every move, and tries to strike her from behind. Silpha looks hella surprised, and Lloyd is stoked because he thinks he's got it in the bag. But Silpha blocks his attack. She wonders if he's cheating, catching him off guard, and she knocks his sword out of his hands. She's surprised he thought she wouldn't catch on to his cheating game. She tells him he's mad skilled for trying to compensate for his weaknesses. She's shocked he can handle 2 spells at once, something most court magicians can't even pull off. She advises him not to rush his growth, but to take it at his own pace. Lloyd realizes she didn't notice his physical enhancements and control spells because he was juggling 4 spells at once. He decides to keep that info to himself so she doesn't get suspicious. Silpha takes him to the maid's bath, but Lloyd protests, saying he can handle his bathing. Silpha isn't letting him out of her sight because she knows he'll end up buried under a pile of books. Lloyd's bummed he can't read his book, but the other maids warn him that the library demon will devour him if he keeps being stubborn. Lloyd is surprised there's a library with a forbidden demon. The maids start telling the story of the demon named Grim, who wrecked the kingdom back in the day. It took a bunch of sages to seal the demon away in a book. Silpha thinks it's all just a fairy tale because she can't believe there's a book in the castle's underground library where the monster is trapped. Silpha thinks Lloyd won't be scared by that kind of story, but she's surprised to see him shaking. The maids offer to bunk with him for the night, but Silpha shuts them down, saying she's the only one who can handle that. An argument breaks out between the maids, and Lloyd takes advantage of the chaos to slip away. The idea of a forbidden underground library in the castle gets Lloyd all hyped up. Lloyd heads underground and uses a concealment spell to sneak past the guards at the entrance. The guards argue about whether the library tale is legit, while Lloyd slips right by them. They're convinced no one can get past them and break the seal put in place by the kingdom's top 10 mages. Lloyd reaches the barrier and breaks the seal with ease. He steps into the library, amazed that he had no clue this dope section existed underground. He explores the library, checks out the books, and reminds himself to put the barrier back up when he leaves. He sits down with a book when suddenly another book starts floating, catching Lloyd off guard. A demon emerges from the book and tells Lloyd he's impressed he broke the seal. Lloyd wonders who the demon is, and the demon introduces himself as Grim, the demon from the Forbidden Book. Lloyd introduces himself to Grim, and Grim tries to persuade Lloyd to set him free. He tells Lloyd his seal is already weakened, and he'll eventually be free. He offers Lloyd all the gold he wants if he frees him, but Lloyd isn't impressed by the demon's conjuring skills. He's disappointed that Grim just turned dust into gold, so he easily crushes the gold back into dust, surprising Grim. Lloyd tells him he plans to restore the seal because he isn't about to let some demon mess up his plans of mastering the kingdom's magic. Grim tries to convince him that he has no beef with the citizens because the sages who sealed him are long gone, but Lloyd isn't buying it. Grim gets desperate and offers to teach Lloyd some ancient magic that's been lost over time. This catches Lloyd's interest, and Grim says he'll teach him because he sees Lloyd's got a mad talent for magic. Lloyd remembers the prince's words, saying magic will never favor him because he's just a commoner. Now, he's convinced he's got a body made for magic, way more privileged than any commoner. He decides to release the demon seal, and Grim can't believe his luck. Lloyd can't wait to start learning from the demon, and Grim decides to keep his word. He hits Lloyd with an ancient flame magic right away, thinking he's got him down and can make his escape. He's shaken to see Lloyd chilling without a scratch because Lloyd got his barrier game on point. Lloyd is delighted by the demon's spell and asks him to show off some more. The demon gets mad and throws more ancient magic spells at Lloyd, but none of them can break through Lloyd's barrier. The demon is straight up baffled and wonders what the hell Lloyd's barrier is made of. Lloyd is so hyped about the magic that he decides to give it a try himself. He takes a piece of his barrier and holds it on his finger to study its composition. He's eagerly waiting for Grim to bring the heat when suddenly Grim sprouts a second mouth and starts chanting. Lloyd notices the double incantation and realizes Grim's about to unleash a devastating ancient spell. Lloyd analyzes the spell from within his barrier, but Grim can't believe Lloyd is still kicking after taking his strongest attack. Grim decides to make a run for it, but he's stopped by another barrier. Lloyd lets him know he put up the barrier, but Grim's hurt because he thought Lloyd was trying to dip. Lloyd tells Grim he just put up the barriers as a precautionary measure. Grim is done with Lloyd's shenanigans and decides to finish him off, but Lloyd tells him he already knows his spell. Lloyd decides to test Grim's defensive magic and casts a massive spell. Grim can't believe Lloyd has such a huge mana tank. He tries to dodge the fire spell, but he gets roasted to a crisp. Lloyd wonders why Grim couldn't dodge his attack, and Grim can't believe Lloyd's ego is through the roof. Lloyd takes care of the library's damage, and Grim is dumbfounded because Lloyd restores the room flawlessly. He starts treating Lloyd with respect because he's blown away by his skills. Lloyd knows you can't take out demons with just magic, so he decides to push Grim's limits. But Grim backs away with fear. He ends up surrendering and offers to be Lloyd's servant. He asks to be Lloyd's familiar, and Lloyd agrees instantly, but Grim feels like Lloyd sees him as some lab experiment. Lloyd tells him he stands out too much and asks him to transform into something smaller. Grim transforms into a cute little demon to butter Lloyd up and catch him off guard. Lloyd asks him to hop into his coat, and Grim can't believe Lloyd is dumb enough to let him get close. Grim plans to attach himself to Lloyd and take over his body, but when he touches Lloyd, he's shocked by how dense Lloyd's mana is. He realizes he can't control him and decides to be obedient because he knows he isn't standing a chance. Lloyd uses the opportunity to read all the books in the Forbidden Library. We got this dude, he's all noble and stuff, getting ready for his day and strutting through his big old mansion. In the library, Grim warns Lloyd that someone is approaching. Lloyd tells him to hide, and we learn that this noble is Prince Albert. This guy's got mad skills. He shows off his magic and blows everyone's minds by nailing the target dead on. People think he's going to be the next king with all that talent. Albert's got access to fancy places like this one, and sometimes he invites Lloyd to tag along. Lloyd can't use his magic much in the castle, so he's stoked when he gets an invite to the range. Now it's Lloyd's turn to show off. But he isn't interested in no throne, he isn't got to impress anybody. Plus, if he unleashed his true power, he'd get caught up in all the power struggles between the princes. Lloyd isn't feeling that. All he wants to do is research magic and live in peace. Grim wonders what he will do about the demonstration, so Lloyd explains that he will simply make his fireball curve so that they only graze the targets. Lloyd makes it sound easy, but Grim knows that's some next level skill right there. Lloyd starts blasting away, barely grazing each target. The crowd's all disappointed, but Grim's like they should have known how ridiculously hard it is to control magic like that. Lloyd doesn't even pay them any mind, though he's too busy thinking about how he can improve his technique. Albert seems like he knows something, but he keeps his mouth shut and tells Lloyd to hang out while he takes a break. Lloyd is on cloud 9. He's got so many things he wants to try out. First up, he wants to give that dual incantation a shot, just like Grim did. But Grim's all freaking out, saying it's impossible. Only demons with extra mouths can do that stuff. Lloyd thinks he's got a solution, though it works, but Grim's all shocked, saying no sane person would ever try to merge with a demon. Lloyd did just that. He tells Grim to go ahead and cast an infernal fireball. Grim declares that this will be a piece of cake for a demon of his caliber. but he freaks out when things don't go the way he planned. Grim is terrified and wonders what Lloyd did. Lloyd explains that it was just a spell stack. I compress incantations by reciting a bunch of them at once. Lloyd's able to cast spells way faster that way. And get this, he takes it to the extreme, casually dropping that he recited like 100 spells in each line of the incantation. Grim's straight up stunned, can't believe how chill Lloyd's acting. He points out that even as a powerful demon, he can only stack 2 or 3 lines at a time. Lloyd moves on to the next test and realizes he can talk out of both mouths now. Grim's panicking, thinking Lloyd's going to pull off 2 advanced spells at once, but Lloyd shuts him up. Suddenly, this immense power surges through Lloyd as he unleashes the Infernal Fireball and Water Bolt spell. Grim's panic levels hit an all-time high because he realizes Lloyd's mixing 2 crazy advanced spells. The mana's off the charts, and Lloyd's pumped to see what this dual incantation can do. He figures he can't release all that power on the ground, so he just shoots it up into the sky. Even then, the display of power is so intense, you can see it from miles away in the castle. Some of the servants aren't too happy that Albert's hanging with Lloyd because they think he's just a kid who sucks at magic. But Albert shuts them down. He reveals that Lloyd intentionally grazed all the targets perfectly. It was all part of the plan. Albert calls Lloyd a freaking genius. Albert predicts Lloyd could become the Grand Sage, the ultimate wizard, and he hopes they can be allies. The servants are sure that he will be able to convince him, but Albert points out that he just wants to get along with his little brother. Albert predicts that Lloyd probably already knocked down all the targets, but the servants once again doubt Lloyd's ability. They think there's no way this kid could take them down so damn fast. And then one of the servants is like, "Why is it so dark outside?" We find out why when Grim's shaking in fear after seeing Lloyd blow a freaking hole through the atmosphere. Lloyd starts panicking because he doesn't want anybody to find out, but luckily things go back to normal. That was some insane stuff. Grim's straight up terrified and starts wondering who the hell Lloyd is. The next morning, Grim gets fed up with doing all these duties for Lloyd. But then he calms down and reminds himself that he has to keep Lloyd's body clean and healthy because he's going to take it over later. Yeah, it's some weird possession stuff. The tear in the sky makes it to the newspaper, but nobody knows what the hell caused it. Lloyd's probably got some serious ADHD because he's already moving on. Now he's all hyped about this new story about high-ranking adventurers. They cleared out some crazy hard dungeon and came back with mad treasures and magic items. Lloyd thinks that sounds hella fun, so he decides to go to a dungeon himself. Grim's like, "Lloyd, if they find out you're gone, it's going to cause a freaking panic." But Lloyd's got a solution up his sleeve. Grim's all confused when Lloyd pulls out an acorn. But then his confusion turns into amazement when Lloyd uses that acorn to make a wooden copy of himself. And get this, it's not just a basic replica. Lloyd made it all complex and gave it nerves and stuff. So, it not only looks like him, but can also do simple movements on its own. This still isn't enough, as Lloyd points out that he would have done this sooner if it was sure to work. Turns out the real problem is Selpha. Whoever that is, we see how she's obsessed with Lloyd, noticing every little change in him. This silly wooden dummy he made won't fool her, but Lloyd's got another solution. He heads outside, and we see he left Grim in charge of the replica while still being able to talk to him through his hand. The maids think the replica's adorable, but Grim's thinking about how insane Lloyd is. Lloyd transferred Grim's soul into the replica and somehow incorporated his soulless body into his hand. Lloyd leaves the rest to Grim, and Grim's all impressed by how real the replica feels. Soon enough, Grim realizes that Lloyd isn't there to stop him, and he starts getting some wicked ideas in his head. Just then, Lloyd tells him how much he enjoys having Grim as his familiar, and that brings tears to Grim's eyes. Lloyd wonders if something is wrong, but Grim just tells him to hurry up and finish with the dungeon. Lloyd realizes that he doesn't know where to find a dungeon, and Grim notices that it looks like someone is being attacked nearby. It isn't the case. The seemingly helpless chick turns the tables on her pursuers and straight up wrecks them. She shows off her badass fighting skills, and Grim points out that she must be a martial artist Lloyd has read about. She's using some breathing technique that lets her tap into this energy called Ki and gives her insane strength. Somehow, she can sense their presence, but Lloyd's cool with it because he wants to learn more about her technique. He begins to panic, though, when Grim points out that she might recognize him as the 7th Prince. Lloyd goes all quiet, and the girls think he's an enemy, so they start heading their way. Lucky for Lloyd, he manages to change his appearance just in time and introduces himself as Loberto. Lloyd used some spell that let him transform into someone he'd seen before. He combined his looks with this dude Albert, using some fancy dual incantation to come up with a whole new appearance. The girl introduces herself as Taowe, and Lloyd's all worried that she might be onto him because she isn't turning away. Turns out, Taowe's freaking because she thinks Loberto's a total hottie. She spent her whole damn life training for this shit, escaped some dojo and became an adventurer in search of romance. But no luck so far because most dudes prefer them weak-ass priestesses. Her time has finally come, though, so she vows to make Loberto her boyfriend. She looks pretty busy, so Lloyd decides not to ask her to clear a dungeon with him, but she jumps at the chance when they enter a dungeon. Tao is eager to show him her fighting prowess, but our boy Lloyd is too busy obsessing over some glowing rocks. Tao was impressed by how much Lloyd knows about her breathing technique, and she explains that it's all about breathing when it comes to using a ki. You have to breathe right to fill your whole body with ki, and that's what lets you unleash superhuman strength. The problem is, it takes a ton of training just to start feeling the ki in your body. That is why Tao recommends that Loberto spend his time finding the key to her heart, but Lloyd just brushes off her cheesy joke. He surprises Tao when he starts using the breathing technique himself. He explains that he just copied her, but she warns that if he's not used to it, he will feel like his lungs are burning. But Lloyd, being his crazy self, keeps going with the technique, and he's shocked when he starts feeling that energy inside him. He gets all hyped because he knows he can use this power for sorcery. Tao decides that she will help him learn about keys and instructs him not to stop the breathing technique until they leave the dungeon. Back at home, Grim thinks Lloyd's nuts because he's got this comfy life. But Lloyd doesn't give. All he cares about is learning more about sorcery. Things are going smoothly for Grim, but he gets a shock when Sulfa shows up in the dungeon, blasting keys and taking down the boss. They get rewarded with a chest, but Tao's like, if this dungeon isn't big, the loot isn't going to be good. They check out the chest, and Tao is amazed to see that Loberto's already mastered the breathing technique in such a short time. She knows she hit the freaking jackpot. If she can get Loberto in on some student-teacher action, her guardian won't have a choice but to accept him as her fiancé. Tao was about to pop open the chest, but Lloyd's got to save her because it's got a deadly trap. Some monster dude jumps out, and Lloyd's like, is this the real boss of the dungeon? Tao isn't sweating this lick like it's a big deal, so she tells Loberto to bounce from the dungeon while she handles it. But the situation is way gnarlier than she lets on, so she apologizes to her boy and kicks him out of there. She admits she might have messed him up a bit, but it's better than him losing his life to the lick. Tao is dodging the lick's attacks, but she knows even a ranked adventurers don't get a chance against the lick. She isn't dumb enough to think she can whoop it, so she decides to buy Loberto some time to skedaddle elsewhere. Lloyd's still flying high from being launched by two, but he's bummed because he wants to learn more. Lloyd stops and wonders if he should head back. He's torn because he doesn't know why she kicked him out of the dungeon, so he asks Grim for advice. Grim isn't saying anything at first, but when he does, he just tells Lloyd to come home and save him. Back at the fight, things aren't looking too great for Tao because she realizes her life's about to be over. She tries to back off, but she's shocked when the lick starts talking. He explains how he chows down on adventurers' souls to gain their smarts and skills. He figures it isn't worth devouring Tao because her key technique is just weak-ass magic. But he's interested in Lloyd because of how quickly he reacted to the trap. Tao points out that the lick and Loberto are nothing alike. Most people brush off key techniques as a waste of time, but Loberto was impressed by it. The lick couldn't care less, so Tao throws up a barrier to protect the lich, but she keeps pounding on it while letting him know she's been training her key techniques since she was a little kid. To show her rage, she mentions how she spent all her time training and never had a chance to get herself a man. Her barrage of attacks ends with one final devastating blow, and she declares that messing with her is a big mistake. But Tao has drained all her ki, so she can't even move a damn inch no more. And that's when things get real ugly because the lick reveals he's still kicking. Tao went all out with her ki blast to wreck the barrier, but the lick lets her know it was a beautiful effort. Her full power isn't even worth a flick of his magic finger. The lick rubs salt in the wound, saying she wasted her life with all that training. He casts a spell to crush her with a magic shard, but the lick gets a shock when Lloyd swoops in to save her. Lloyd explains he's about to get taken over, but he hasn't got much time, so he has to end the fight quickly. Tao isn't got a damn clue what's going on when Loberto shows up all serious and shit. Lloyd flies in behind the Lick and is straight up shocked to see him bust out the breathing technique. Even the Lick is like, what the hell? Because Lloyd pulls off an air class spell called Full Sprint without even chanting the incantation. The Lick tries to attack him, but he's dumbfounded by how strong Lloyd's barrier is. Lloyd isn't even paying attention to the monster. He's all about perfecting that combo of ki and mana. He isn't quite there yet, but he remembers Tao's words to keep his focus. Lloyd takes in even more air, concentrating hard, and he amps up that full sprint spell. The Lick thinks Lloyd's trying to escape, so he goes in for the attack. But Lloyd's just taking in more air. He gets rid of his barrier because it's in the way, and the dumbass Lick thinks he shattered it. Thinks he's got the upper hand, so he goes in for the final blow. But Lloyd dodges that shit like a boss. Tao's jaws drop as she sees that Lick's attack didn't break Lloyd's barrier. Loberto did that shit himself to draw in even more air for a stronger ki technique. Lloyd keeps dodging attacks while molding his ki and mana together. Everyone's jaws hit the floor when he unleashes this new power, but Lloyd isn't satisfied. He tweaks it a bit, laughs like a maniac, and launches a barrage of attacks on the Lick. The dude's a psycho, demanding that the Lick doesn't give up because he's having a blast, and there's still so much cool he wants to try out. The Lick's mind is blown. He thought Lloyd was just some mage, but this kid isn't using any incantations, and his basic ass ki techniques are matching the Lick's sorcery. The Lick takes some hits and realizes Lloyd's techniques are overpowering him. Lloyd sharpens his attack even more, and the Lick tries to defend with a barrier, but it's useless. Lloyd's attack slices right through it and slices the Lick's ass too. So, Tao watches in utter amazement as Lloyd proclaims that he figured it out. After all that, Tao was bummed because they just got some old dagger for all their hard work. But Lloyd can tell that shit's soaked in mana. She still isn't impressed, so she hands it over to Lloyd. Just then, the ground starts crumbling beneath them, and Tao explains that dungeons fall apart once the boss is defeated and the treasure is taken. Lloyd's mind is blown again, thinking it's like some survival tactic for lizards losing their tail to survive. Lloyd figures out that dungeons chill underground until someone drops a magic item. Then the dungeon absorbs that shit and starts growing around it, collecting gear from all the losers who couldn't clear it, and when the dungeon senses it's about to get cleared, it offers up one of the items it gathered to survive. That shit's wild, but they aren't got much time left. Lloyd pulls the chest out of the ground like a boss, and they bounce right before the whole dungeon collapses. Lloyd stares at the closed-up dungeon, amazed as it gathers its strength underground, ready to become a dungeon again. Tao gives props to Loberto for being an amazing mage, but she wonders why he busted out a ki technique at the end of the battle. She thinks it was because the Lick was talking to her. But Lloyd spills the truth and says he did it just for fun. Right then, Lloyd's got to dip because he remembers he's got to haul ass home. Tao is thinking about how advanced that ki technique Lloyd used is, so advanced that she can't even touch it. So she declares that she will work out intensively to become a fascinating girl for the next time they meet. Lloyd says that he will train hard too as he leaves and hopes to become the kind of girl who can catch his attention. Then, she realizes she doesn't even know how to get in touch with him, but it's too late. Lloyd rolls up at home and flips out when he sees Grim all messed up. Selpha took the fake Lloyd for training, but she was shocked at how weak his ass got. So she promised to make him strong again. Now Grim's sobbing because he couldn't hang in there during the training. He's bummed that Lloyd was gone for so long just for some crappy sword. But Lloyd schools him and says it's a damn treasure. He soaks it in hot water and scrapes it to reveal that it's been treated with mana essence. Mana essence is hard to come by, and enchantment spells are difficult to do. They use mana essence to write magic formulas on weapons to make them stronger, but if that shit fails, both the essence and the weapon go to waste. Because mana essence is rare as hell, Lloyd decides to analyze the shit he scraped off the knife so they can make their own. He uses a purification spell to see what's in it, and it turns out to be oil silver, and something called hematite. That hematite is made from grinding a monster's core, so it's pretty rare, but they can get some from the dungeon chest. All they need now is oil and silver. Lloyd's pops gives him some silver coins, wondering what his son's going to buy with them. Lloyd and Grim head to their hideout and melt that silver down. After that, Lloyd makes a bet with Selpha. If he can land a hit on her, she has to hook him up with some oil. Lloyd pulls off some badass magic moves and gets ready to win that bet, but he loses track of where she's at. Selpha straight up shows her skills and takes the win in the fight. And get this, she's all cool about it and even hooks the dude up with the oil because she's just glad he isn't as weak as before. But Grimm's spying on them and he's pissed because she basically called him weak. He can't believe she managed to beat him, even without magic. So now he's wondering what kind of mage she really is. Then Selpha starts gushing about how impressive this 10-year-old Lloyd is. Kid's a total bad with both the sword and magic. So she predicts that he could become a knight commander when he grows up. Lloyd just thanks her for the oil, and she's curious what he's planning to cook with it. Lloyd and Grimm head back to their hideout to add the oil to their mix, making some bad mana essence. Next, Lloyd asks Albert for some weapons to test his enhancement magic. Albert finds it hella cute how much Lloyd loves magic. So he asks his crew which one of them wants their weapon boosted by his adorable little. They all jump at the chance, but let's be real. It's because Albert practically ordered them to deep down. They aren't too thrilled because enchantment is mad tricky and rarely goes smoothly. Plus Lloyd's just a 10-year-old, so they're thinking he'll probably end up breaking all their weapons. Grimm hears them doubting Lloyd and he's all fired up. He steps in and declares they're going to enchant the crap out of those weapons and make them unstoppable. Lloyd goes all mad scientist mode and shocks Grimm by slapping on 3 layers of this enchantment called Boost Power. This kid's a straight-up maniac, filling every nook and cranny with spell formulas. The sword snaps like a twig because the steel couldn't handle all those spells. Lloyd realizes that enchanting is a tough job, but Grimm's there hyping him up, telling him to keep at it. After a bunch of failures, Lloyd finally starts getting the hang of it. He heads back to Albert with 50 out of the 120 swords he got. He apologizes for breaking 70 of them, but deep down, he's stoked because he enchanted 80 of them. The only problem was he got greedy and added too many spells to a few swords, and well, they ended up toast. Albert's in straight up disbelief because even top-notch enchanters only have like a 10% success rate. It's so insane that the others don't even think Lloyd enchanted the weapons at all. They figure he just gave up after ruining 70 swords and returned the rest untouched. So the crew decides to lie and say the swords feel sharper. But one dude gets a shock when his sword slices his sheath in half. They don't know what to make of it, but the angry little Grimm feels vindicated. Albert's amazed by one of the sickest swords, and Lloyd explains he wanted to see them in action. Perfect timing because Albert drops the bombshell they're going on a monster hunt. Right after that, we see Lloyd rolling with Albert. Lloyd's got Grimm by his side, no doubt. They reach the woods where they are going to hunt down the monster. But the monster isn't in the woods, it's chilling by the lake nearby. Lloyd's pumped as hell because he doesn't get to leave the castle often, and he's stoked to see his magic swords in action. Albert points out how Selpha always sticks with Lloyd, and she thanks him for letting her come along. Albert jokes that Selpha might have strong feelings for Lloyd, but she shuts him up quickly. Just then, they get surrounded by a bunch of kobold, but those soldiers see it as a warm-up for the real deal. Lloyd pretends to be scared, but Grimm knows he sensed the danger way before. Lloyd's has this technique called spectral detection, where he can feel his surroundings all the time by breathing a certain way. Grimm watches his master and knows he can't surprise Lloyd because he's always on the lookout. Grimm says Lloyd gets scarier every day. The fight starts, and everyone's tripping balls over how damn sharp those swords are. They aren't just slicing through monsters, they're cutting through steel like it's butter. Soldiers are freaking out like kids with a knife for the first time. So, Lloyd knows his enchantments worked like a charm. Albert agrees and tells everyone that his little bro is a damn enchanting prodigy. Selpha agrees too, standing over a pile of dead monsters. But Lloyd points out he didn't even enchant her sword. Right then, one of them kobold tries to attack Lloyd, but out of nowhere, Tawa shows up and takes it out. Lloyd almost slips up and calls out to her like he's still Loberto, but he catches himself just in time. Tawa notices Lloyd using some key breathing techniques, but she came because she thought she sensed Loberto's slow ass, and she sees a lot of resemblance between Loberto and Lloyd on a closer look. Right then, Selpha kills another monster. She gives props to Tawa but warns her not to get too close to Prince Lloyd. Tawa says she sensed another monster coming and that the key techniques. The tension starts rising between these two, so Albert steps in and calms them down, inviting Tawa to join them that night. Tawa is shocked to find out Albert's a prince. Albert looks somewhat like Loberto, but not as much as Lloyd, who she's looking for right now. Lloyd hides nearby and realizes that Tao's got mad skill with Ki, and that's how she found him. Lloyd decides to dip into his tent, but for some reason, Selpha's in there changing. Lloyd says that he doesn't need her to protect him, but Selpha disagrees as she doesn't like how the new girl is chasing after him. Then Tawa comes barging in, and Selpha straight up calls her an idiot, and Tawa fires back calling her a perverted maid. These two start going at it, so Lloyd sees his chance to dip out. Albert calls Lloyd a lady killer and points out that Selpha has changed a lot since she started looking after Lloyd. She sees Lloyd growing up, but Albert warns him that dealing with women can get complicated. Just then, the girls notice the soldiers watching them a little too closely. They knock them all out, and Lloyd gets the message loud and clear from Albert. Tao explains she got hired to clean up some old shrine, so Selpha tells her to hurry up. They almost start arguing again, but Albert interrupts and says Tao's ability to sense danger is hella helpful. He would like for her to act as a lookout for them overnight. But she points out that they won't need one as the monster's here now. The monster turns out to be a bear wolf, so Selpha tells Lloyd to stay behind her. The monster starts attacking, and Lloyd points out how bear wolves are incredibly fast for how large they are. Lloyd tries talking to Grim, but the little dude's all distracted because he recognizes the shrine or something. Tao manages to save some soldiers, but this monster is tough as nails. Albert had enough, so he busts out his sword. He says sorry to the wolf, but explains that the villagers suffer because of it. Albert swings his sword while chanting some words, and he unleashes a crazy powerful attack that obliterates the monster. Everyone's mind blown that he took it out in one shot, but Albert points out that his attack is not normally that powerful. It's all thanks to the enchantment Lloyd put on his spellbound sword. Lloyd thinks about how he added a little extra sauce to Albert's sword, but Grim isn't even paying attention. He's mad worried and spills the beans that there's a freaking demon sealed in the shrine nearby. Just then, everyone shook as the bear wolf somehow keeps moving. More monsters pop up out of nowhere, and a voice starts talking to our crew. Turns out the voice is coming from inside the bear wolf, and it introduces itself as Pazuzu the demon. He's pissed that they messed up one of his minions, and he swears they're going to pay with their lives. Pazuzu sends his minions to attack, and they aren't anything to slice up because they heal up instantly. Tao swoops in and saves Albert, and he figures out that the demon's calling the shots for all those minions. Lloyd wonders if the demon knows Grim, but no, they aren't tight like that. Grim breaks it down. Pazuzu can transform his mana to control those monsters. He makes them think he's their master, but for real, his mana acts like strings pulling their puppet strings. He can even supply mana through those strings, which is why they keep healing up. Grim gets serious and says things are going to get ugly if they don't take Pazuzu down. However, Lloyd doesn't care and just wants Grim to teach him mana transmutation. Selpha wishes Tao would hurry up and do something, but Tao points out that Selpha isn't doing anything. Grim tells Lloyd it isn't the best time to learn something new because they are all fighting for their lives, but Lloyd's so sure they'll be fine and insists that Grim teach him anyway. While watching the fight, Pazuzu starts running his mouth. He admits some of his opponents have skills, but most of them just survive because of their weapons. Then he starts dissing Lloyd, saying he ran away like a scared baby. Selpha isn't having none of that, and Pazuzu tells her it's got to be tough taking care of a useless sack of flesh like Lloyd. That's it. Selpha's had enough, and Tao was scared out of her mind. Selpha steps away from Lloyd, but he doesn't even notice because he is deep in his learning zone. Pazuzu keeps talking smack, but Selpha fires back. She says all his minions reek like garbage, and the only thing worse is his breath. She's decided Pazuzu's messing with Lloyd's fresh air, so she's going to end his life. Selpha casually draws her sword, but Pazuzu explains that they have no chance of leaving her alive. He's supplying those minions with mana, so they're going to keep regenerating endlessly. Demon's got mana for days, so he isn't running out either. Pazuzu thinks he made Selpha cry, but she straight up tells him it's his breath again. Just then, Albert gets worried when the demon attacks her, but she's more than fine because she cuts off all the monster's feet. She suggests Pazuzu leave behind the furball he's controlling and warns he's going to lose even quicker if he doesn't, and everyone notices the minions stop moving and regenerate slower. It's because the demon's focusing on regenerating its bear wolf. They might have a shot at winning when the demon does that, so Albert tells Selpha to keep inflicting damage on him. She gets ready to do it, But Pazuzu thinks they're playing themselves. Meanwhile, Grim wraps up his lesson for Lloyd. He explains how Pazuzu must be a real pro at mana transmutation because it isn't easy, even for a badass demon. Grim tries to show Lloyd how to control mana, starting with adding some color to it. Then you have to shape it and add sense. Grim struggles with it, but he's hella shocked when Lloyd reveals he shaped his mana into a flower and even added a scent. Grim can't believe how perfectly he did it already, so they both take a moment to enjoy the smell. While all that's going on, Pazuzu's in deep trouble because Selpha's straight up whooping his sorry ass. He can't figure out how she isn't leaving any openings, and he's wondering how a babysitter like her can be skilled. Selpha borrows a soldier's sword and admires it because Lloyd enchanted it. Her obsession with Lloyd got Pazuzu interested in him, so now he wants to dissect him. The demon's moving hella fast, but he keeps insulting Lloyd, and that just makes Selpha even angrier. The demon tries to swallow her up and mocks her for falling for his tricks like a dumbass human. But damn, he's stunned when Selpha's still kicking, and she slices that bear wolf's body clean in half. She calls it her family's dual blade art and follows it up with another move called Diving Sparrow that slices the monster's head right off. Pazuzu tries to say she's just a maid, but nah, that isn't true. Selpha unleashes another move that obliterates the wolf and exposes the demon. Everyone's mind is blown by her power, and Lloyd realizes this is Selpha when she gets dead serious. He admires her and remembers this moment by shaping his mana into an image of her. Selpha's disgusted by the thought of the demon trying to harm Lloyd, so she declares the only thing he's fit to touch is her blade. Selpha tells the demon to chill and make peace, but damn, she's shocked when he starts doing some crazy shit. The rest of the crew takes care of those little minions, but Albert knows it isn't over yet. They have to back up Selpha pronto, and then, out of nowhere, everyone collapses because of that demon's foul miasma. Even Selpha. Pazuzu is pissed. He spent a century building them puppets, and now he blames Selpha for screwing up his plan. He launches an attack, sending her flying into the river. Albert wants to help, but damn, he's running on empty. Pazuzu reveals his miasma of domination, saying anyone who breathes it falls right into his trap. Selpha points out that's why it smells like shit, and Pazuzu gets all butthurt because she keeps dissing him. He tries to attack Selpha again, but Tawa steps in and blocks that shit. Selpha tries to play it cool, telling Tawa to run, but she's hurt badly and collapses. Pazuzu is impressed as hell. Selpha took a heavy dose of his miasma and still defied him like a boss. Even the monsters he controlled fell under his power in less than 30 seconds. But Pazuzu is mad and curious about Tawa. She isn't under his control, and that's tripping him out. Tawa pushes him back, but he manages to capture her. Pazuzu thinks she's some kind of breathing master, resisting his miasma and all. He is correct, but things get bad for Tawa when her breathing is interrupted. Pazuzu points out that she could have just run away, but this weirdo assumes that she stayed because she wanted to become his minion. She pushes the demon away and tells him she's waiting for a total hottie. She's done playing around, so she busts out this crazy powerful attack. She realizes she went a bit overboard and needs to steady her breathing before the demon strikes back. But she's got even bigger problems because one of the puppets comes at her. She's shocked they regenerated so fast, and the demon wonders who this hottie she's talking about is. Pazuzu's done with all the talking and unleashes his ultimate domination miasma. He thinks she's going to be under his control for sure now. But Tawa realizes something big, that hottie she's been talking about. He's closer than she thought. She can still sense him through all of Pazuzu's miasma, and it gives her hope. Pazuzu is still clueless about who she means, so Tawa spills the beans. The hottest dude is coming to wreck him. Sadly, her time's up, and that puppet monster straight up devours her. Now Pazuzu's focus is all on Selpha. He thinks she'd make a sick addition to his crew of minions. He knows it won't be easy to get her under his control, but her strength makes it worth the effort. Pazuzu plans to drown her in miasma, and Lloyd figures that's how he controls the bear wolves. Pazuzu patted himself on the back, bragging about how he killed their folks and replaced them in the pups' minds with his miasma. He's feeling unstoppable, claiming nobody can defy his dominance. But then Lloyd calmly calls him out, saying Pazuzu's a piece of shit. And Pazuzu's mind is blown when he sees Lloyd moving around in his miasma. He demands answers, but Lloyd doesn't even know who he is. Pazuzu's even more shocked by that, but then he realizes Grim is a demon too. He can't wrap his head around why a demon would protect a human, and Pazuzu straight up disses Grimm, calling him cute. He's ashamed of being a demon, or so he says, but Grimm's had enough. He's tempted to see Pazuzu torn to shreds. So Pazuzu sends his scary-ass demons to attack. But Lord is pumped because he wants to test out his new power to transmute shit. The problem is, there are a ton of monsters, so Grimm tells Lloyd he'll have to use up a big chunk of his mana. Lloyd figures out the right amount, and Grimm's amazed because he always struggled with that shit. Lloyd envisions something calm and warm, and Pazuzu's mind is blown again when Lloyd easily breaks his hold over the bear wolves. Grimm calls them all weak, but Lloyd points out that even he might have fallen under his mana's influence. Lloyd has one of the bear wolves spit out Taoe, and he's relieved she's alright. Pazuzu still can't believe how Lloyd turned all his mana into a field of flowers in a split second. He's convinced Lloyd must be some badass sorcerer. Pazuzu tries to control his minions again, but Grimm tells him it's too late. The bear wolves remember their monster pride and how Pazuzu offended their parents. The pissed off bear wolves attack Pazuzu, and Lloyd's blown away by their group attack. It's hella powerful, and no puppet could replicate that shit. Pazuzu shows he's still a strong demon and punishes the bear wolves for coming at him. He isn't regretful about killing their folks, and he insults them, calling them mangy mutts. Pazuzu's pissed now, saying this is what happens when someone defies him. He claims Lloyd's spells don't mean shit because they're useless against a demon. Lloyd remembers Grimm saying the same shit. Magic can't straight up eliminate demons. So Grimm explains it's because it's never happened before. Then Pazuzu starts bragging about showing off his true power now that he isn't feeding his minions with mana. Lloyd isn't even paying attention because he's too damn curious about why magic can eliminate demons. He figures demons must be hella tough to wipe out completely, but that just amps up this crazy kid's excitement to find out what it'd take. Pazuzu is straight up horrified when he sees the dark power coming from Lloyd's body. Grimm points out that's why Pazuzu's mana never affected Lloyd. One day, Lloyd decided to hide his power to avoid drawing unwanted attention, but keeping it locked up all the time was a damn chore. Grimm tells Pazuzu his mana was never going to be enough to even touch Lloyd. Pazuzu and Grimm might both be demons, but their mana isn't shit compared to Lloyd's power. Lloyd's still a psycho, happy as hell that he's got a demon to test out all the spells he's been dying to try. Supposedly, demons can't be wiped out by magic, so Lloyd can go all out without holding back. Pazuzu's shaking in his boots, wondering how the hell Lloyd's got such a massive amount of mana. He thinks he must be trapped in some freaky-ass nightmare, and he's shocked when Lloyd tries to trap him in a barrier. Shit gets scary for Pazuzu when he realizes this isn't even a fight for Lloyd. Lloyd just sees him as a damn lab rat and wants to put his sorry ass in a cage. Pazuzu tries to bounce, and Grimm doesn't blame him because he'd do the same damn thing. Lloyd's having a blast unleashing some of his power, while Pazuzu's hauling ass to avoid getting caught in the barriers Lloyd's throwing up. Pazuzu's barely escaping, so he begs Lloyd to cut it out. Grimm watches in awe, wondering how the hell Lloyd can cast so many spells at once. Lloyd says he can do about 20, but when he teams up with Grimm, they can cast even more. Life gets tough for Pazuzu because now he got to dodge even more barriers, and he's wondering how the hell Lloyd can chant so damn fast. Pazuzu pats himself on the back for dodging so much, but that doesn't last long because Lloyd uses a spatial spell called Dimensional Enclosure. Lloyd points out that he has him now, so Pazuzu tells the psychotic sorcerer to let him go. Lloyd refuses and points out Pazuzu has done terrible things to the bear wolves. Not only did he off their parents, but it's clear Pazuzu did a bunch of chimera experiments on them. Pazuzu begs to be set free, claiming he's the demon meant to rule the whole damn world. But that doesn't work, so he offers to boost Lloyd's status when he takes over. Yeah, that doesn't work either. So, then he begs Lloyd to chill out. He's never been hit with magic from someone as powerful as Lloyd, so he's scared as hell he might die. Lloyd tuned out this dude a while back because he's just spouting some crazy shit. Pazuzu keeps begging for his life, but it's too damn late because the magic's already going down. Lloyd figures he's cranking out 240 spells a minute right now, and damn, he's amazed by how dope it looks, so he decides to keep it up for another solid 30 minutes. But not even 5 minutes later, Lloyd's worried the demon might already be toast. Grimm explains that sorcery messes up demons like how shitty sounds and bright lights mess up us humans. But the sheer amount of magic Lloyd unleashed on Pazuzu fucked him up big time. Pazuzu's falling apart, thinking about how he spent a whole century raising them monsters. He was supposed to rule the world, but it all got shut down by some kid who wanted to experiment on him. Lloyd's already over it, which just adds insult to Pazuzu's injury. Then, out of nowhere, Lloyd's shocked to see everyone's already waking up. He can't let them find out about his insane power, so he bolts to come up with an excuse. Grim tells Pazuzu that he's figured out people don't want to follow leaders who bitch about how hard shit is. They want to kick it with someone who's having a good time. Lloyd's always doing what he wants when he wants, so that's probably why folks flock to him. Grim remembers to keep up his tough guy act and explains he isn't like the ones flocking to Lloyd. He's just building up his strength so he can get revenge on Lloyd someday. In this case, Pazuzu decides to trust his world domination dreams to Grim. Grim's down and happy to see Pazuzu's manas helping him recover a bit. Lloyd comes up with an excuse, telling everyone some dude named Loberto showed up, defeated the demon, and saved them all. Tao overhears and wonders where Loberto is. The whole town celebrates the return of the badass Prince Albert. They think Lloyd's a cute kid, but he isn't shit compared to the great Albert, and that pisses off Selpha. The king is impressed with Albert and wonders where the two adventurers who helped them are. Albert explains Loberto was never actually seen, but we get a glimpse of what happened to Tao. She got suspicious when she realized she was wearing Lloyd's poncho, so Lloyd just tricked her into leaving by saying Loberto was nearby. The king's Hela is interested in this Loberto person, but Albert shocks everyone by saying Lloyd did the most in the hunt. They only survived because of Lloyd's enchanted weapons, so Albert thinks Lloyd should be part of the royal succession. Everyone in the room is straight up dumbfounded because Albert thinks Lloyd would be perfect for the damn throne. The king points out that this would just create another rival for Albert, but Albert thinks that the throne should be given to whoever is most worthy, even if it's not him. He questions any decision that it exclude Lloyd just because he's young, but Albert makes it clear he isn't going to let himself be outshined either. The king's pumped about this crazy turn of events and asks Lloyd if he's down for the struggle. He wants to know if Lloyd's going to stand with his brothers in the quest for the throne. Everyone's mind blown by this epic moment, but Lloyd's just chills and declines calmly. Outside, this little dweeb's running around like a damn rookie and explains that one of the bear wolves followed them home. Lloyd thinks it's cute as hell and fluffy, so Grim gets jealous that he isn't getting the same reaction. Grim puffs himself up and casually jumps into the convo. Selpha shows up to see how much the bear wolf digs Lloyd, and Lloyd hides Grim in its fur. Lloyd's named it Shiro and wants to teach it all kinds of shit. Selpha explains that complex commands are usually for monster tamers, so Lloyd thinks about using mana to control monsters as they do. Grim's amazed by Lloyd, turning down the throne offer like it's no big deal. Lloyd's always just obsessed with magic. He's a true sorcery maniac. The king's watching nearby and thinks Lloyd turned it down because he's modest as hell. But Albert doesn't think that's the reason, because he believes kingship's just too small a role for Lloyd. The king agrees and can't wait to see what Lloyd's future holds. Later on, we find out that Lloyd taught his wolf some basic commands. Shiro picked them up quickly, but the more complicated commands gave them trouble. Lloyd tried writing some command spells into his mana, but that just messed up the poor animal. So, they decide to hit up a monster expert and head over to Princess Elise's garden tower. Grim is straight up amazed by all the monsters there, and Lloyd explains that Elise is his sister, the 6th princess of Salem. She's a hardcore animal lover, not just cats and dogs, but all animals, yeah, even monsters. Just then, out of nowhere, Elise pops up and starts showering Lloyd with affection. But it's too much for him, and he straight up passes out. Elise gets chewed out by her maid named Ares, but she explains that she can't help herself. Lloyd is impressed when Elise can tell that Chero is a bear wolf, but she seems kind of nuts, and Selpha starts doubting if she can help them. Lloyd wants to give her a shot, though, so he asks to see one of her monsters, and he's shocked when she reveals she already called one an upper-class Fenrir named Laru. Grim's mind is blown because that's a seriously high-level bear wolf. Lloyd can't wrap his head around how this monster slipped past his detection. But what's even crazier is that he has no idea when Elise gave the command. The Fenrir knew to creep up behind them and even snatched Selpha's headband. Elise gave it some complicated orders, and she did it without showing a damn thing. This gets Lloyd pumped, so he begs Elise to teach him how to talk to Shiro. Elise says it isn't going to be easy, but Lloyd likes it better when things aren't simple. She agrees to teach him, but she drops a bombshell when she says that the key to talking to animals is love. She claims that love helps him understand any monster, and to prove her point, all the animals in her tower come and give her hugs. Aries thinks it's a waste of time learning from Elise because she's just a natural, but Elise says anyone can learn. She gives another demonstration, but this time the animals go a bit wild with everyone. Selpha's shocked to see that Lloyd seems interested in love, and she daydreams about him asking her to teach him more. But in reality, Lloyd realizes that he's been trying to give orders to Shiro, while his sister isn't giving any commands to her animals. Instead, she's just sharing her will when she talks to them. Lloyd notices that her mana isn't coming from her hands, but it's flowing straight from her head to the animals. That means she can connect with them subconsciously through mana, showing them exactly what she wants. Lloyd figures out that instead of giving orders, he's going to try sharing a mental image of his will. Lloyd straight up pulls it off, and everyone's mind is blown when Shiro does the trick Lloyd was trying to teach him. Lloyd celebrates with Shiro, and Aries determines that he must be gifted. The technique he's using is exactly how monster tamers share their will. Selpha's impressed too, but she's a bit let down because it didn't go down the way she imagined. Elise isn't happy about it and says it's supposed to be about love, not all this complicated will sharing stuff. Lloyd breaks it down even more, and it just makes everyone fall head over heels for him. Lloyd is glad that he finally figured out how to connect with monsters, and Selpha declares that it's time he put that much effort into his sword training. Luckily for Lloyd, Albert shows up because he needs to talk to the boy. They start arguing about who's going to take Lloyd, and Albert says he wants to introduce him to someone. It's Lloyd's older brother, Diane, one of the 4 princes. Diane heard about Lloyd enchanting Albert's sword, but he shocks Albert when he says he finds it hard to believe. So, he wants to see if Lloyd's just full of it. Albert gives a little backstory about how Diane studied something abroad, which is why he's into enchanting. But Diane's done with the small talk and says he's got everything set up to test Lloyd's enchanting skills. As Lloyd starts the process, Diane seriously doubts he'll pull it off. Enchantments are already a tough skill, but Lloyd trying to apply one to a spellbound sword like Albert's is straight up insane. That's on a whole nother level than what they do abroad. Diane thinks he's got to teach Lloyd a lesson for lying, but he's dumbfounded when Lloyd finishes. Albert understands why Diane is shocked because even a newbie can tell Lloyd's technique is unique. Diane's speechless and wonders what kind of spell engraving Lloyd came up with. It's got reinforced strength, elasticity, self-cleaning, and even self-repair. Diane's skepticism quickly turns into hype because he realizes Lloyd might be able to help him achieve his ultimate dream to create the ultimate spellbound sword. Regular enchanted weapons can't even compare to what he's got in mind. Diane wants them to engrave the spell into the weapon while they forge the steel. That way, they can use more advanced magic than usual. They'll create a super weapon that only an enchanter and a smith working together can make. Diane spills the beans that he was always super into sorcery when he was growing up, but it didn't work out because he sucked at it. But spellbound swords are dope because anyone can swing them and they can do some badass magic type stuff. His goal is to make their country a place where everyone can use magic by swinging spellbound swords. Lloyd isn't too concerned about all that, but he's damn interested in the production process. Lloyd agrees to help, so Diane explains he wants a sword that shoots fire when swung. To make it happen, Lloyd suggests using the enchantment called Pyro Lance. The problem is, the casting formula for that requires 14 parts, but a spellbound sword can only hold a max of 5. Lloyd's solution is to compress that formula into 2 parts. He compresses it and gets ready to apply it to the steel Diane's foregoing. But both of them are shocked because just the application shatters the steel. Lloyd tries to brainstorm some solutions, but the steel keeps breaking. Lloyd feels crappy because he wasted so much mana essence, but he can't figure out what's going wrong. That's when Grimm notices something about the mana essence and brings it to Lloyd's attention. Diane encourages Lloyd to keep trying since he got a bunch of mana essence for cheap anyway. Lloyd purifies the mana essence and finds out it barely has any hematite in it. Enchanting spellbound swords require a higher concentration of hematite, but this stuff, made from monster cores, is pretty rare. Diane hasn't got any, so Lloyd figures he's got to sneak out and hunt monsters in a dungeon again. Just like that, Selpha comes up with the idea herself for them to hit up a dungeon. Lloyd mentions that a prince like him isn't allowed, but Selpha explains that the king changed his mind after the monster hunt incident. He thinks Lloyd should broaden his horizons by seeing the bigger world. To kick off this journey, they head to the Adventurers Guild so Lloyd can register as an adventurer. The receptionist, Katarina, has Lloyd fill out some paperwork before touching a crystal ball that'll measure his strength and assign his adventure rank. Lloyd's familiar with crystal balls for measuring abilities because he used one when he ruled at the Magic Academy in his past life. But now, things are different. Lloyd's sure that if he uses his full power, the crystal ball will explode and draw too much attention. So, he focuses hard on suppressing his mana, even more than usual. He keeps shrinking it down to the size of a flea. When he finally touches the crystal ball, he gets laughed at because he gets an overall rating of E. But Katarina isn't laughing. She's shocked to see that Lloyd's magic rating is an A. That's on par with an experienced sorcerer, which disappoints Lloyd because he thought he compressed his mana to 1%. That's when Katarina declares that Lloyd is the most promising new adventurer since the one known as the Silver Blader. The other adventurers are pissed off when they hear her comparing the two. The legendary Silver Blader wrecked countless dungeons like a damn demon, but vanished all of a sudden. They think it's disrespectful to mention a legend like her in the same breath as nobody. Selpha explains that they want a dungeon quest, but those require at least one B-ranked adventurer to be part of it. Selpha decides to re-register, but one of the dudes thinks she should just roll with him. After Selpha teaches him a lesson, Katarina tells him he messed with the wrong chick because Selpha is the legendary Silver Blader. She explains that re-registering means getting demoted 2 levels to C rank, so that isn't going to work. Just then, Tawa shows up, offering to help out. Selpha doesn't even acknowledge her and says they're heading home. But Tawa insists on helping and says she went from dungeon to dungeon looking for Loberto. Hitting up all those dungeons made her strong enough to rank up. Now Tawa offers her help in exchange for getting a date with Albert. Katarina suggests a dungeon quest while Selpha returns Lloyd's cloak. Lloyd's blown away by Selpha's legendary past, and she explains it all happened when she was a little kid. What she remembers most is her failed attempt to take down some deadly foes called the Assassin's Guild. The trio then enters a dungeon and finds a chest. Meanwhile, back at the forge, Albert goes to see Diane. Diane says it'll take a couple more days for Lloyd to bring the materials they need. But Albert's getting worried about the time it's taken. That makes Diane realize a war is coming, so he tells Albert to just hold on a bit longer. Once Lloyd's back, they can start mass-producing spellbound swords for battle. Albert explains they shouldn't worry about fighting because he brought them together so they could be like brothers again. Albert hopes that one day their weapons will protect the kingdom, so he encourages them to keep pushing. Just then, Diane says they should come quickly because Lloyd's back with a monster core. As they make the sword, Diane realizes that Lloyd is one hell of a kid. Albert already knows it, believing there isn't anything the kid can't do. And it's proven even more when Diane tests out the spellbound sword they made, and it causes some massive destruction. Lloyd realizes he might have gone a bit too far with the sword, so he'll have to tone it down next time. The sword made by the brothers is named Delord. That night, Lloyd finally gets some much-needed rest. He realizes Albert's been busy, so he wonders if something big is coming. Just then, Lloyd senses something in the garden. It's a really strange feeling like there's a damn hole in space. Shiru is sharp, but he hasn't noticed it either. Lloyd wonders what the hell it could be, and we see a mysterious person outside. Out of nowhere, this chick outside flips her lid when Lloyd straight up appears in front of her. Lloyd's all creepy calm, and she tries to bounce, only to find herself stuck. Lloyd explains that he only wants to have a chat, even though she is a trespasser. The girl pulls some weird power move and apologizes because she never wanted to use it against a kid. Lloyd's shocked when his magic can't purify her poison. Her attack wrecks him, so the girl says sorry again and spills that nothing can cleanse her poison. Lloyd thinks that regular purification should handle any poison, so she must be using some unknown toxin. The craziest part is she's changing the nature of her poison with this rare mana stuff. Turns out, she's got a special kind of mana because she's one of those blighted folks with super scary powers. The girl confirms she's Ren, the poison moth blighted. Then Lloyd freaks when Ren breaks his barrier, and he realizes she weakened it with her poison. Ren assures him that he will be okay since he didn't take in that much of her poison. but he will be in pain for the next couple of days. Ren dips out, saying bye, and Lloyd's amazed at how well she hid herself. Grim arrives to point out that this is no time to be impressed. But Lloyd explains that he is fine as he is constantly healing himself. Grim wonders why he didn't stop the girl, so Lloyd explains that he rather let her guide him to their hideout. Grim has no clue who they are, so Lloyd reveals that Selpha told him about the Assassin's Guild, and he's pretty sure that Ren is one of them. They're a crew of 6 assassins with bounties on their heads. But what gets Lloyd hyped is that each of them has their special powers. Lloyd tracks Ren's location, and Grim can't believe he can detect that undetectable girl. Lloyd's like, her presence is like a rip in space, so it's easy to follow. Lloyd goes after Ren, and Selpha shows up late to the party elsewhere. Ren gets chewed out for not taking out the person who spotted her. But Ren spills that she did get some info. Turns out they're producing spellbound swords, so it looks like they're gearing up for war. But one of the assassins is not feeling it. He tells Ren to stop acting like their leader Jade because he's long gone. Ren argues that Jade's coming back, but they're interrupted because someone's watching them. Lloyd shows himself, and Ren's shocked because she thought he was still poisoned. The assassins heard rumors that Lloyd acts all ordinary, but he's secretly super powerful. But none of those matters because Lloyd found them, and they are not letting him leave. This crazy kid hears that and straight up drops his barrier, and Grim's wondering how much crazier he can get. Lloyd explains that he's facing opponents with unique abilities, and it would be a shame if he didn't get to sample them. Lloyd uses his traceability to copy Tao's fighting style and tells the assassins to come at him. He takes down the first challenger, and the dude's impressed that he knows martial arts. Lloyd can tell this guy's mad flexible, and the assassin reveals he can contort his whole body to fit through tiny spaces. The dude is like a freaking rat, so he's called Babylon, the giant rat blighted. Lloyd's mind is blown because this guy's body is straight up unique, but he doesn't have time to admire it because someone sneaks up on him. That guy says sink, and Lloyd's shocked when he feels hella heavy. His name's Crow, the dark raptor blighted, and the mana in his words makes him the cursed bladed. Next up, the big dude swings, but Crow's the one in shock because Lloyd uses raw strength to break his curse. Lloyd gets caught in a trap, and the big dude introduces himself as Galilea, the spider blighted. He can transform the mana around him into sticky stuff like a spiderweb. Lloyd manages to bust out and admires how their abilities match up to the rumors. Then this girl attacks, but Lloyd dodges her hits like it isn't anything. But the crazy chick stabs herself in the leg, and somehow Lloyd feels the pain too. She's Talia, the 100 Pains, and she can share damage with anyone she sees. She's the pain blighted, and Lloyd's like, damn, how the hell does that work? Intros are done, and Talia's all pumped because she thinks she taught Lloyd fear, but she's shaken when Lloyd reveals he isn't scared. But here's the real shocker. Lloyd heals both their stab wounds in a flash, even though they were deep. This kid on another level, wondering what would happen if he hurts Talia. When he heals himself, she gets healed too. So he's thinking if he messes her up, he'll feel it too. Lloyd uses magic to make blades out of some ratty cloth and copies Selpha's fighting style with Chaz. Now this little psycho tells the assassins to get ready because he wants to see how they defend. The assassins start freaking out because he looks just like this swordswoman who traumatized them before, and they are straight up terrified. Lloyd starts his attack, and the assassins are in complete shock seeing how skilled he is with swords and martial arts. And the real kicker? They heard Lloyd was just some magic prodigy. Lloyd damn near slices Babylon in half, but he's tripping when the giant rat relaxes his body at the last moment to spread out the damage. The other assassins try to jump Lloyd together, but they end up messing each other up instead. Lloyd goes all out on Babylon, moving so fast that Babylon can't even say stop to make him halt. Then Lloyd hits him with a twin sparrow attack, and all Babylon can say is ball. Lloyd wonders if he would have ended up bald if Babylon said the word, but he's glad he didn't have to find out. Galilee is out for revenge, but his web gets stuck to everything, and he puts Talia in a tight spot. Lloyd goes after Talia next, but she spills the beans that if he hurts her, he'll feel it too. She thinks he'll back down, but she's shaken when Lloyd's excited to see what that pain's like. Lloyd sends her flying, messing them both up big time. But Lloyd's just stoked it worked. Then the big guy traps him in his webs, but Lloyd slips out of his grip and lands a massive thunder punch. From this point, Lloyd's bleeding from his mouth, so he looks even crazier when he tells Ren to show him her poison again. Galilea tells him not to push her because she can't control her poison mana too well, and if she uses it, they'll all get caught in it. Lloyd realizes none of them seem to have great control over their powers, and Galilea confirms this. He explains if they could control them, they might not have ended up as outlaws. In his rage, Galilea attacks Lloyd, but Lloyd easily shuts him down. Ren tries to save Galil as he's screaming in pain, but Lloyd stops her too. She's all about getting revenge for what Lloyd did to Galilea. But Galilea reveals he's doing just fine. Actually, better than fine because his mana seems to be in check. For some reason, everyone's shocked when Lloyd spills that he engraved the spell right on Galilea's back, so he can control his power. Lloyd admits he's never engraved a spell on someone's body before, but he's glad it worked. Galilea breaks down as the curse finally ends, but Lloyd points out it's more than that because now he can control his mana like a boss. The others watch in awe, so Lloyd tells them it's their turn. He engraves them too, and they're relieved to finally have control over their mana. Crow's nests, crying tears of joy because it's been way too long since he could talk normally. Everyone's celebrating, but Ren is acting like she doesn't care. She claims she's crying for a different reason. But she can't hide her happiness about being able to wear whatever she wants without her poison wrecking her clothes. Lloyd's glad things are looking up, but Ren isn't feeling it when Lloyd's allowed to join their crew. The others remind her they owe everything to him and insist she get ready for the welcome party. Ren tries to call out that he mass-produced weapons of war and snuck into an assassin's hideout. She thinks Lloyd's too damn wild to roll with them. But Grimm sets the record straight. Lloyd was just messing around when he pulled off those stunts. Now that they have control over their powers, Lloyd's all about seeing what they can do. But Galilea wants some answers before they let him in. Lloyd's chill about it, but they insist on spilling their backstory. Lloyd isn't really into the history of the Assassin's Guild, but that changes when Galilea starts talking about their leader. This cat, Jade, goes by the name Phantom Blighted and can teleport. He's the Shadow Wolf. Back in the day, Jade got teleported against his will, and it messed him up badly. Cursed with teleportation, he decided to start the Assassin's Guild. The plan was to take shady jobs at the Adventurers Guild and leave their coin emblem at the scene, showing they were fighting for world peace. They wanted to come out of the shadows and live in the light someday. Galilea keeps going with the story, but Lloyd's more interested in the teleportation bit. Galilea explains that just when things started looking up, they heard the Lord of Lords was getting ready for war, and something happened to Jade. Suddenly, an envelope appears out of nowhere, and they're all shocked. Later on, Selpha storms into the assassin's hideout looking for Lloyd, but he isn't there. She can still smell his scent and finds a note he left behind. Turns out, Lloyd went to meet the Lord of Lords with the Assassin's Guild. Albert freaks out as he reads the note, thinking Lords and the assassins team up and snatch Lloyd. Diane calms him down, and they agree starting a war isn't the answer. War is the last resort, so Albert swears to find a peaceful solution no matter what. But then Selpha drops a bombshell she found Lloyd's clothes in the hideout. They fear the worst, and Albert forgets all about peace, agreeing that war's the only option. But little do they know, Lloyd's not a hostage at all, he's leading the charge somewhere else. After the letter appeared, Galilea immediately recognized the symbol on it to be the one Jade made for them. So Galilea anxiously opens the letter, and sure enough, it is indeed from Jade. In the letter, Jade apologizes for taking so long to contact them. But he had been a little busy as hell. He says he straight up overthrew the Lord of Lordost, who was planning some whack-ass war, and now he's the new ruler of the kingdom. He wants all of them to come and party with him to celebrate. Everybody's stoked about this bomb-ass news, but Lloyd looks at the letter and he's got a different reason to be happy. Galilea comes up to him and gets on his level, thanking Lloyd again for helping them control their curses. But they got to bounce to Lordost now, so Galilea promises they'll pay him back for being such a G someday. Now Ren's got something else in mind. She wants Lloyd to roll with them to Lordost's kingdom so he can put a spell on Jade to keep his blight in check. Lloyd doesn't have a problem with accompanying them, but he asks if Ren knows where this letter came from in the first place. It just appeared out of nowhere, which means it was accurately teleported here from some other place. Teleportation magic is still a huge mystery in this world. Isn't no one just randomly figuring out how to use it? So there's only one legitimate explanation. Jade must have control over his powers after all. It wouldn't make sense for him to straight up lie about that. But here's the deal, they can't be sure if what was said in the letter is true. It might be a trap if they roll to Lordost now. But Ren's still holding on to the belief that Jade would never backstab them. She's all like maybe he learned to control his powers on his own. If that's the case, Lloyd doesn't have to tag along for the reunion. He's going to roll anyway because he's hyped as hell about teleportation magic. Ren wants to trust Jade, but she can't help but worry about what might go down if shit messed up over there. So Lloyd tells her to chill the fuck out because if things go south, he's got their backs. He can handle any trouble that pops up. Galilei is once again singing Lloyd's praises for being so damn cool to them. And after that last statement, Ren's officially head over heels for him. Now, back to the present, Lloyd's got to make a quick stop with his flight spell because none of them can handle that high-speed shit. He's bitching about wasting time because they only flew for 10 damn minutes. But let me tell you, they'd straight up die if they had to endure another minute of supersonic speed, and Babylon's all pissed off about it, stuck in a bad mood. Lloyd concedes and says they can just take a break here and walk the rest of the way since they are pretty close already. And since they're taking a break, Ren offers to grab some grub for them while Lloyd helps Babylon sort out his messed up back. Babylon mentions how Ren's trying to impress Lloyd because she grew up in the damn woods. Shit, she accidentally killed her parents with her poison when she was a kid, so she had to survive on her own out in the wild. And the first person to find her was Jade. He brought her back to the hideout and introduced her to everyone. But they were all kind of scared of her poison powers, so Galilei wasn't sure it was a good idea to keep her around. Plus, she was growling at them like she had rabies or some shit. Still, Jade was dead set on having Ren stay with them. But when he hugged her, she released a whole bunch of poison, and he straight up collapsed. Even after that near-death experience, Jade still wanted Ren to be part of their family. He asked everyone to help take care of her, and since he insisted so damn much, Galilei offered to be her teacher, while Crow and Talia whipped up some clothes. That's when Ren got to see what it was like to have a family. Eventually, Jade came up with a spell to put on her clothes, neutralizing her poison mana. Finally, she could live a somewhat normal life around other people. Jade acted like a big brother to her. And damn, when Lloyd hears all this, he's hella curious to meet Jade. That's a big deal because he hasn't shown interest in anyone before. Finally, Ren comes back from her hunting trip and brings whatever the hell this is. She puts in effort, but nobody wants to touch her nasty ass food. So Babylon asks Crow to use his curse speech to make the food taste good. He's about to do it. But then Ren punches him in the gut with her poison because she doesn't want him messing with her food. Talia tries to reason with her and reminds her that Lloyd's a prince, so this shit she made probably isn't his style. But damn, she's dead wrong because Lloyd's scarfing it down without a second thought. It isn't the worst thing he's ever eaten, considering his messed up past life and all the nasty shit he had to stomach. The others get the courage to try it after seeing Lloyd dig in, and the food might look nasty, but it isn't half bad once you get used to it. Ren did a damn good job considering she never had a chance to practice cooking with her poison powers, so everyone ends up digging Ren's food, and she hopes she can share it with Jade someday. Now we flash back to a time when Jade comes back to the crew with some news. The guild's thinking about reconsidering the bounties on their heads, so the whole squad starts celebrating. They might just be able to rejoin society now that they aren't outlaws anymore. Jade tells them not to get their hopes up because the guild's still just thinking about it. But it's a step towards a future where they're accepted for who they are. And that's enough reason to party. Jade's grateful to have such dope-ass friends, but he's feeling guilty about something, so he gathers everyone's attention to confess. Turns out, he isn't just some random dude. He's the third prince of Lordost. He's nobility, and he admits he approached them to use them for his own goals. Lordost is ruled by his evil-ass family who's always thirsty for war. Jade was desperate to find a way to stop them from kicking off a pointless war, so he formed this crew. He expects them to be pissed at him for manipulating them, but they don't give a damn about his initial motives. They pretty much figured he had some royal blood with the way he carried himself, but Ren had no clue, so she's losing it trying to process all this info. While Ren's still catching up, the rest of the crew tells Jade that they all have their own messed up stories that brought them here. They aren't pleasant backstories they usually talk about, but at the end of the day, regardless of his motives, he's family to them. He could have kept his mouth shut and they wouldn't have questioned him. But now that he spilled the beans, they're down to help him take out the Lordost family if he wants. But nah, he isn't into that because it'd be messed up if the guild found out they assassinated folks based on personal grudges. The whole bounty reconsideration would be cancelled, and they might even raise the bounty if they get involved. So he wants to handle the Lordost family on his own. Jade always saw the Assassin's Guild as his real family, and he'd love nothing more than to stay with them forever, but he can't just stand by when Lordost's about to start a war. Since he'll be bouncing soon, he wants them all to make a promise with him to keep the Assassin's Guild going, even if he doesn't make it back alive from Lordost. And if he doesn't make it back, that means he's successfully taken over Lordost and become the new ruler. So he vows to make that place a spot where the messed up can live free. After hearing the story, even Grim is convinced that Jade must be one hell of an awesome person. Once they finish grubbing, they continue their short-ass walk to Lordost. But Lloyd was straight up knocked out along the way, so Galilei got to carry him. As they keep walking, Ren steps up in front of the crew and shares her concerns. She doesn't think Jade would betray them, but there's a chance the Lordost family got him twisted and made him do some shady shit. So she thinks they should let Lloyd rest here while they go scope out the area and make sure it's safe. Galilei agrees and slaps Lloyd awake before turning to Grim and asking him to watch over Lloyd while they're gone. But Grim doesn't think it's such a bright idea because Lloyd's practically invincible, even when he's knocked out. But if they go into Lordost alone and shit hits the fan, Lloyd's going to be pissed at him for letting them get in trouble. So he's rolling with them. They arrive at the castle, and there's a damn party going on, just like Jade mentioned in his letter. Grim doesn't sense any hostility from the folks here, so he figures it's safe to go get Lloyd and bring him back. Now that Galilei thinks about it, he remembers Jade being interested in Lloyd for some reason. But before he can spill the beans, they get spotted by a castle staff member. The dude recognizes them as the Assassin's Guild, but instead of freaking out, he takes them down to the banquet and announces the arrival of the guests of honor. Seems like there was nothing to worry about after all. Grim's about to fly back to get Lloyd, but Ren's getting all jittery because she's about to meet Jade again, so she asks Grim to stick around with her a bit longer. Finally, Jade shows up in the banquet hall, and they're all stoked to see him, but damn, he's got a whole new look that throws them off. Jade decides to change back into his regular clothes because he's with friends, so he snaps his fingers and teleports them into his body. The others are straight up shocked that he's fully mastered his powers. When they ask how the hell he did it, he just says he practiced like crazy until he got it down. Ren steps up to finally talk to him again, but she's so overcome with emotions that she can't find the words to express herself. Unfortunately, Jade's done playing nice, and he switches up the whole damn mood in the room as all the guests turn evil. Jade somehow pulls off some cursed speech trickery and slams them all to the damn ground. He straight up announces to the crowd that they can take their pick from the blighted peeps he lured in. Dude don't even give a damn about remembering their names. But before shit hits the fan, Grim unleashes his powers and attacks Jade, buying enough time for the others to dip. Grim seems to know what the deal is with Jade, but before he can spill the tea, Jade teleports behind him and kicks Grim across the whole map. Grim luckily crash lands right next to Lloyd, and once he wakes up, he starts spilling the beans about some messed up stuff that went down with the Assassin's Guild members. Back at the castle, Ren confronts Jade, still holding on to a tiny bit of hope that there's some legitimate explanation for this madness. But her hopes get crushed when Jade reveals that everyone there is possessed by demons he brought from the Netherworld. And get this, he isn't even really Jade. Nah, he's a damn demon named Gisarm, wreaking havoc in Jade's body just so he can have his teleportation powers. He straight up says the real Jade is dead because he took over his body. This sick bastard took pleasure in messing with Jade's mind for months, and the only thing keeping Jade going was his love for his crew. Demons dig blighted peeps' bodies as hosts, so Jade knew Gisarm was coming after his friends if he took over his body. So instead of letting that happen, Jade chose to end his own life with his own hands. If he succeeded, both he and Gisarm would be 6 feet under. But nah, Gisarm couldn't even let the man die in peace. When Jade was about to kick the bucket, Gisarm just healed all the damage in an instant. The other demons are getting restless about taking over a blighted person's body, so Gisarm grabs Ren and sarcastically warns the demons to watch out because she's got some deadly ass poison that killed her parents at birth. Even though they're all seething with anger, they can't do jack shit to stop Gisarm. Homeboy inspects Ren's body, planning to take her over, but he pauses when he spots the spell Lloyd had put on her. He's pissed as hell that someone would dare to mark his property, so he uses some cursed speech to force Ren to spill who did this. Ren, fueled by sheer willpower and loyalty to Lloyd, resists the urge to rat him out at first, but Gisarm keeps screaming in her face, demanding to know who gave her that mark. Out of nowhere, barriers pop up around all the Assassin's Guild members, and a freaking massive death laser obliterates everything around. But the one who cast the laser is Lloyd, and he looks like he's pissed. The demons are straight up terrified after witnessing the insane power Lloyd just dropped. But before Lloyd goes into full-on rampage, he heads over to check on the Assassin's Guild crew. He patches up Ren's injury and tells them Grim already filled him in on what went down, so he wants them to bounce ASAP. Since the demons are targeting the guild, it makes zero sense for them to stick around and get themselves killed. That's why Lloyd orders them to scram so he can handle the rest on his own. Ren protests, but Galilei shuts her down and grabs her, so they can make a run for it. He knows Ren feels she should stick around to help, but they'd just be in the way, plus they're no match for Gizarm. It's best if Lloyd takes care of things. At the same time, the demons are still lost in it, convinced Gizarm was wiped out by Lloyd's blast. But then Gizarm teleports back up to the surface and Furious orders the other demons to chase the Assassin's Guild immediately. They're crazy good at hiding, so if they get away, Gizarm might never track them down again. Not letting them escape, Lloyd fires off several more death lasers, blasting every demon in the castle grounds except for Gizarm, who manages to teleport out of harm's way. A couple of demons try to ambush Lloyd while he's distracted, and Gizarm seizes the chance to unleash his cursed speech, telling Lloyd to kick it. Lloyd sees it coming and has already set up a barrier to block the attack. But to his shock, the spell slides right through his shield. With his brain on Quicksilver timing, Lloyd still has plenty of time to react. While dodging might seem smart, he's also curious to see what happens if he lets it hit him. But before he does something reckless, Grim forces him to dodge the cursed word, and it collides with one of the demons, killing it on the spot. Lloyd then uses his analysis magic to review the aftermath, and it turns out the death spell wiped out even the demon inhabiting the body, its death ultimately caused by cardiac arrest. Grim's telling Lloyd to bail on fighting Gizarm cause it's way too damn dangerous. Gizarm's magic doesn't even need a spell, it just taps his mana and creates an effect on its own. Kind of like Crow's cursed speech, but way more refined. When using a normal spell, a barrier can block its effects. But when an attack comes straight from raw mana, the barrier acts more like a net. Solid blows are blocked, but mana just slips right through. If they were dealing with someone like Pazuzu, Lloyd could easily crush any attack he threw. But Gizarm's mana could actually pierce Lloyd's heart if he isn't careful. Gizarm looks down at the demons that survived Lloyd's death ray and shows nothing but contempt for them. Grim explains to Lloyd that demons are ranked in 10 classes, so the ones down there are 10th class, basically trash. For reference, Pazuzu was an E-class demon, and Grim himself is a 3rd class demon. Lloyd figures that would make Gizarm a 1st class demon, but it's actually far worse. Gizarm is demon royalty, a demon lord. His power is so monstrous that even 100 first-class demons wouldn't stand a chance against him. Lloyd might be amazing, but Grim believes even he is outmatched this time and orders everyone to scram. Yet Lloyd keeps flying closer to Gizarm instead. Gizarm then asks who Lloyd is, and he introduces himself as the 7th Prince. Gizarm vaguely recalls something from Jade's memories about wanting to meet Lloyd, though he doesn't bother remembering the details. Lloyd admits he'd have loved to meet Jade, but now he's never gonna get the chance because of Gizarm. Gizarm fires back, upset that Lloyd just showed up and started blasting his minions and wrecking his base. They both have scores to settle, and they look just as crazy and amped to get things started. Meanwhile, Grim once again suggests that Lloyd should run while he still has a chance to escape. Lloyd admits that taking out Gizarm isn't as easy as smashing the demon he decimated on the ground. Grim is shocked that Lloyd would call that routine easy. Even though he always said 10th class demons are trash, they're still pretty tough and naturally resistant to sorcery. Gizarm is chomping at the bit to get the fight started, so he uses his mana to form a tiny spike and launches it straight at Lloyd, nearly busting through his barrier. Even if it didn't go all the way, it's the first time Grim has seen anything actually damage Lloyd's shield, which sends Grim into a panic. Gizarm is impressed with the durability of Lloyd's barrier, but he wants to see how it holds up when he isn't holding back. He then fires off several mana sword projectiles at Lloyd. Lloyd starts a series of evasive maneuvers to minimize the damage, but he still loses a lot of his shield layers in the process. Lloyd gets so wrapped up dodging the swords that he forgets Gizarm can teleport. He's taken aback when Gizarm suddenly appears right in front of him and shatters the barrier with a single kick. The blow sends Lloyd flying straight into a sword, so he thinks fast and casts an earth puppet spell to shield himself from getting impaled. Galilei and the others watch in awe at the scale of the battle between Lloyd and Gizarm, and even the demons are stunned until both sides realize they're all on the same bridge, and the demons start chasing the assassins. Galilei turns to Babylon, who's been struggling to clear the gate, and orders him to speed up so they can pass. At the same moment, Lloyd is still deep in combat with Gizarm, and Grim is already in tears. But Lloyd doesn't care about feelings, he simply calls on Grim for backup. Gizarm is flabbergasted that Lloyd managed to dodge his attack completely unharmed, and the only time he managed to put pressure on Lloyd was when he teleported. Lloyd fires back that the teleportation ability isn't even his to use. Gizarm sees it differently. Since he stole Jade's body and Jade never could control that power in the first place, he believes he deserves it. Humans can't control abilities like that without a spell, but for a demon born as a mana master, it comes naturally. It's only natural he'd claim that gift for himself, and now he's fixin' to show Lloyd what proper teleportation looks like in battle. Gizarm summons more mana swords and starts mocking Lloyd, daring him to attack, dodge, or even run. But when Lloyd takes a stab in the back, Gizarm laughs, declaring he never had a choice. With teleportation, there's no need to launch projectiles in the usual way. They can be sent directly into Lloyd's body with no way to block them. Now convinced of his own victory, Gizarm names his new power Shadow Wolf in honor of the moment. On the other side, the lowlife demons are still after the assassins, ordering them to surrender their bodies. But the crew has just learned to harness their own powers for the first time, so there's no way they're about to give it up. Galilei uses his web ability to cover the ground and hold the demons in place while the team escapes the webs harden after a few seconds. To ensure none slip away before they set, Crow employs his cursed speech to make Humpty Dumpty and the rest collapse. Galilei praises Crow for nailing his cursed speech without hitting their own folks. While the demons remain down, Babylon finally manages to open the gates so they can make a break for it. Just then, however, the demons start fighting back, ripping bricks out of the ground to stand up. They won't get far unless someone stays behind to hold them off. Before Galilei can step up, Talia takes charge. She scans the demons, and with a surge of power, she slices her ankle to render them unable to walk. She orders everyone to keep out of sight since she can't control her ability enough to avoid hurting her allies. She wants them to leave her behind and break for the woods to safety. Ren isn't willing to split up. Knowing she can't escape on her own with her leg hurt, the demons writhe in pain from Talia's ability. But they regenerate their wounds, and that, in turn, heals Talia. Not wasting a beat, she immediately stabs her foot again, sending the demons into fresh agony. Once more, she urges the crew to hurry and get out while they still can, promising that she won't let her body be stolen away that easily. But Ren can't just accept being left behind, so she tries to grab Talia so they can flee together. Instead, Galilei pushes her back and locks her outside the gate, choosing to stay behind with Talia. The moment the gate stays closed, the demons still could tear right through it, so at this rate none of them will escape unless they get stopped now. The demons knows exactly what Talia's aiming to do, so he won't let her go it alone and risk killing herself. Soon enough, the demons start freaking out when they realize Talia is serious enough to sacrifice herself to wipe them out. They scramble to block her path, but Galilei steps in to hold them off. Ren shouts at them to chill, reminding everyone that they were this close to living together as a family. Even though Jade might never come back, now that they've mastered their powers and erased their bounties, there's really no reason to throw in the towel. Talia can't even imagine the pain Jade must have suffered trying to end his life for their sake. Yet she understands the drive to do whatever it takes to protect her crew. Without hesitation, she slashes her own neck to weaken the demons. At the same moment, Gizarm looks down in disgust at the sorry lot below, wishing Lloyd had put on a better show so that Talia's sacrifice might have meant something. Then he hears a crumbling sound from where Lloyd's body should be. Gizarm spins around and sees that Lloyd has turned to dust. Before he can react, the real Lloyd attacks from behind, but Gizarm teleports away just in time to avoid getting cut. He realizes Lloyd set a decoy to lower his guard and is now wielding an enchanted sword. So it looks like their fight is about to get a whole lot more interesting. Lloyd then seems worried about something else, not related to Gizarm, and orders that they move to a different spot to finish the fight because there are people around he really doesn't want to see. Right before Talia can finish her own move, hundreds of fireballs suddenly rain in from behind the gate, so Galilei grabs her to keep her from getting caught in the blaze. The demons end up getting scorched by the unexpected attack, though neither Talia nor Galilei can figure out where it came from. Then the gate is sliced open and Lloyd's family storms in. Albert leads them, and even though the chaos is off the charts, it doesn't change their mission. They're here solely to rescue Lloyd. The demons are lit up in flames, and Ren breathes a sigh of relief that backup has finally arrived. Crow mentions he thinks he's seen Silpha somewhere before, but his memory's all fuzzy. Albert and Silpha catch wind of it and spin around to give them a murderous glare. In no time, the assassins are on their knees, shaking in fear as Albert mulls over what to do with them. Diane pipes up that the demon horde should be handled first, but Silpha insists that sorting out the Assassin's Guild is the top priority. She levels her sword at them and demands to know where Lloyd is. The crew freaks out, and then Silpha whips out a pocket watch, warning that for every lie they spin, she'll off one of them. Galilei starts shaking and stuttering as he confesses that Lloyd's currently locked in battle at the castle. Albert then asks who exactly Lloyd is fighting and why. Ren blurts out that he's taking on the demon boss for their sake, but Babylon cuts her off, reminding everyone of what the sleepy Lloyd had made them promise earlier when they were eating, that they'd keep his strength and grim under wraps from the palace folk. When Galilei asked why he wanted to keep it secret, Lloyd said he didn't want any extra attention to distract him from his magic studies. Now Ren wonders what she should say, and Silpha announces that their 1 minute of silence is almost up. In a panic, Ren blurts that Lloyd is battling a total loser right now. The others try to back her up, but they end up sounding like a bunch of clowns, and Silpha doesn't trust a word they say. She prepares to finish Ren off, but Albert steps in. Galilei and the rest start buttering up Albert, insisting that a kind, wise guy like him would surely listen. But Albert snaps and orders them to shut it all down. He pulls out Lloyd's underwear they'd found in the assassin's HQ and demands to know why Lloyd would fight for people who dared strip him naked. Galilei stammers that the garments were just soaked in his fluids and left to dry, not realizing how incriminating that sounds. Albert and Silpha are in full murder mode, but Ren stands up, admitting that outcasts like them aren't easily trusted, and she's ready to take any punishment they dish out. At that moment, she insists they trust her just this once, explaining that the demons stole Jade, her dearest, and that Lloyd is fighting them because of that loss. Everyone falls silent, mulling over her words. Suddenly, a demon-possessed human lunges at her, but out of nowhere, Princess Alice rides in on her majestic fox, Luru. The fox bites and devours the attacker, and Alice declares they can trust her because if Ren had any ill will, Luru would have gobbled her up first. Albert decides to take his sister's word and declares that the demons are now their top priority. He orders Silpha to track down and retrieve Lloyd, and she sets off without delay. Ren clings tightly to Silpha, protesting that Lloyd is fighting some total weakling and doesn't need backup. But Silpha warns her to let go or she'll strike, and Ren holds on despite her fear. Soon, Ren spots a teleportation circle hovering in the air, and before anyone can react, dark energy spears rain down, ripping the bridge apart. Diane peers over and sees the demons scrambling to cross the river and flank them. Albert panics, realizing that if the fiends get behind, they'll be trapped, and orders his soldiers to retreat. Silpha is distraught, having been so close to reaching Lloyd. It turns out Gizarm attacked the bridge on Lloyd's orders to let the fight run free. As Gizarm watches the forces fall back, he tells Lloyd to resume the battle. Gizarm snaps his fingers and teleports a barrage of spears straight at Lloyd's spot, aiming to stab him. But Lloyd evades the assault with impressive speed. Gizarm sends more dark spears in hot pursuit, yet Lloyd stays locked on his sword. Glancing down, he sees Albert and his crew keeping the fleeing demons in check with their magic swords, which convinces him that he can now fight without holding back. The demons on the ground are set ablaze by the knight's fire attack. Though they scream in pain and feel the burn, their bodies regenerate every bit of damage, leaving the battlefield in a chaotic, relentless struggle. Even though the demons are built tough against magic, Albert isn't sure if he should off them since they're still in human bodies. Out of the blue, Diane whips out his special magic sword and chucks a giant fireball at the fiends, blasting them away in a massive explosion. But that doesn't work at all, and even the knights wielding their magic swords are running low on stamina. This has Albert stressed out, wondering what to do next. He figures they gotta switch tactics to let Luru and Silpha get in close and take on the demons. When he turns to check if they're ready, he finds that Silpha is missing. Silpha had scaled up on Shiro, and is now leading him to the broken end of the bridge, urging him to rush toward Lloyd. Galilei and the others tell her it's impossible, and she realizes it too. Yet she keeps coming up with wild, foolish ways to cross the shattered bridge. Shiro, desperate to see his master, takes a leap of faith but ends up falling into the river. Just then, as Silpha is about to jump after him, someone climbs up the bridge and attacks her. She dodges the first strike and then draws her swords to block the rest. The attacker turns out to be the Humpty Dumpty demon, who compliments Silpha's skill and declares that she's good, but not as good as him. He boasts that while his lackeys here are just 10th class demons, he is an 8th class demon and a master of the demon blade technique. Silpha ponders the demon class system, wondering what class Pazuzu might be, but it doesn't matter because Humpty Dumpty still seems a lot weaker than him. Meanwhile, Albert is still trying to figure out if there's any way to save the people possessed by the demons when one suddenly launches a surprise attack on him. No one's ready to fend it off, but out of the blue, Babylon shows up to rescue the prince. He grabs the demon's neck and twists it 180 degrees. Albert thanks him and remarks that Babylon didn't even hesitate to deal such fatal damage. Babylon tells him he's a stand-up guy, just like their old leader Jade. He adds that even though they're assassins, they don't take life and death lightly, and he went all out earlier because the demon-possessed were already finished. The demon tries to recover from the damage it just took, while Babylon tells Albert there's no saving those demon-possessed fools because their minds are long dead. Soon enough, the demon collapses after failing to regenerate its body. Seeing Babylon's words and the gruesome sight makes Albert realize what must be done. He storms up to the blazing demons and pulls out his magic sword. With a few quick hand signs like something out of a ninja flick, he activates a heavy flame spell. He wants to apologize to the people of Lordost for not being able to save them, but he's determined to set them free from their suffering instead. With that in mind, he unleashes his spell and makes fireballs rain from the sky. The fireballs explode on impact, and the demons start screaming in pain as they burn. Albert orders his knights to stop holding back and put every bit of strength into wiping out the enemy. On the flip side, Silpha launches a flurry of fast strikes at Humpty Dumpty, who keeps blocking and backing off. The demon jumps up and uses a drilling move to push Silpha back, but she just deflects his blow. The demon takes to the air again and sends out a series of flying slashes, yet Silpha fends them off with ease. Suddenly, they both launch a special move, charging at each other full throttle. Their collision is so fast it's like an unplanned dance, and they seem evenly matched at this point. They keep trading special attacks, and the shockwaves alone are enough to damage the bridge. Eventually, they separate. As Silpha lands, her hairband snaps and blood trickles down her forehead. Humpty Dumpty has taken a similar beating, but he recovers easily thanks to his demonic powers. He starts laughing, claiming that humans will never beat demons. Still, he admits that Silpha is strong, which is why he now craves her power. He boasts that by taking her body, he'll master both his technique and hers. Then he shifts his stance and charges at Silpha using the Lordost sword technique. She reacts a bit late, and her dress gets cut off as she narrowly dodges his attack. Humpty claims the previous owner of this body was a real hard worker and a top-notch martial artist. He points to his calloused hands as proof of how much sweat and grit went into his training. He boasts that he's got all the memories of that former master locked inside and plans to use them to his advantage. He goes on to say that to demons like him, humans are nothing more than a suit of clothes, and now he's fixin' to take over Silpha. Silpha doesn't take those words kindly. She leaps high into the air to unleash the same demonic technique Humpty once used. Stunned, Humpty barely manages to block her move at the last second. Terrified that Silpha might also know the demon sword technique, she fires back that she picked it up just by watching others, because she isn't so weak that she can't learn a new style without hijacking someone else's body. Humpty gets livid at that slight, but Silpha brushes him off and calls for Shiro, who scampers back to her side. She rummages through his fur until she finds a special sword Lloyd made just for her. Drawing the blade, she challenges Humpty to witness what humans are truly capable of. A few days back, Silpha had been training hard to beef up so she could take on demons like Pazuzu on her own. When she swung the sword with all her might, it bent and even the dummy target started spinning wildly before toppling over. Disappointed, she was about to give up when Lloyd and Diane showed up with a brand new sword. She lights up at the sight of it, and Lloyd explains that it's a magic sword, but he didn't load it with any flashy spells. Instead, he made it extremely strong and flexible to handle all of Silpha's power. He told her it was powerful enough to cut down a demon, since demons are basically psychic beings that can't do much without a body. If their vessel dies, the demon inside dies too. Silpha then asks Lloyd why he chose those spells for her sword. Nervously, he admits that she always seems to hold back when she swings, so he figured she might be worried it would break. That's why he built her a sword that wouldn't crack. Overjoyed, Silpha throws her arms around Lloyd, thanking him for taking such good care of her. Diane cuts in and suggests they give the sword a name. Silpha, still stung by her failure against Pazuzu, decides to christen it Demonbane as a vow never to lose to another demon again. She draws Demonbane and vows to prove the name's worth right now. Humpty fumes at her, sweat dripping from his nervousness, and calls Silpha delusional for thinking she can best him. He laughs and declares that this kingdom is doomed to fall to the demons, simply for the thrill of it. Humpty goes on to claim that Gizarm orchestrated the whole elaborate scheme to lure Jade here, making his underlings possess the bodies of the people of Lordost and spreading rumors of war. Jade had no option but to return home to avoid that war, a decision that turned out to be fatal. The assassins are livid upon hearing about the demon's heinous acts against Jade, and Ren can barely hold back her fury. She charges at Humpty for revenge, but Silpha slaps her, telling her to back off because she's getting in the way. Taking a firm stance, Silpha promises Ren not to worry because she will avenge Jade and ensure the demons never destroy this kingdom. Humpty vows to prove her wrong with his ultimate move. He charges at Silpha, but she swiftly draws her blade, slashes him, and sheaths it before he can react. Humpty's body is torn into many small pieces, and blood splatters everywhere as he dies. Silpha then wraps her sword in a delicate lace and glances back at her fallen foe, looking utterly cold and menacing. Silpha strides over to Humpty and gracefully drops to her knees in front of his remains. She says that before a demon took over his body, he must have been a revered warrior and swordsman, and she would have loved nothing more than to spar with him. The assassins are paying their respects too, and Silpha notices Ren crying hard. She asks if Ren ever knew the man, and Ren replies she did not, but she feels deep sorrow for him. Rising, Silpha dusts off her clothes and tells Ren and the others that perhaps they aren't really cut out to be assassins. By now, Galilei and Crow have figured out that Silpha is the legendary adventurer they once battled. All of a sudden, an explosion rocks the area behind them, and in the next instant thick scorching steam fills the scene. Silpha looks bewildered as the assassins barely see that the entire river seems to have evaporated. Then Ren realizes that Lloyd must be involved in this mess, and she can only worry about him. A few minutes earlier, while Lloyd was soaring through the air, Gizarm had launched discs crafted from his dark energy spears at him. Lloyd dodged them as he flew near the river, but knew he needed a new strategy to face them. The spear discs kept chasing him, shattering the decoy barriers he left behind. In between, they randomly fired additional spears in his direction, forcing Lloyd to constantly improvise new diversions. The spears sliced through ordinary barriers with ease, but Lloyd was protected by a heavy-duty shield, so they couldn't reach him. Right when he thinks he's safe, a magical ribbon coiled around one of the spears starts unraveling and seeping through his barrier. Lloyd realizes that this is Gizarm's cursed speech at work. He managed to reshape it for better control. With no other option, Lloyd is forced to break his heavy-duty barrier to escape the relentless cursed attack. Even though cursed speech means instant death, Lloyd figures it travels slow compared to the spears. But with Gizarm mixing them up so skillfully, dodging the constant attacks is proving to be a real pain. While Lloyd is mulling it over, several teleportation circles pop up around him, forcing him to bounce quickly as dark spears appear instantly, a move Gizarm calls Shadow Wolf. Lloyd jets away from the scene, troubled by the fact that Shadow Wolf is the toughest thing he's facing right now, making him stay on the move at breakneck speed. He knows if he slows down even a couple of seconds, Gizarm will pin him down and land a crushing hit. On top of that, Gizarm has infinite mana since he's a demon and can keep launching non-stop attacks until his enemy is exhausted. Lloyd is pissed and decides to turn the tables. He uses his double casting technique to fire off a powerful spell in under 2 seconds, summoning a giant flame golem that charges at Gizarm with a massive punch. Lloyd can only watch, equal parts angry and amused. Gizarm figures the golem won't kill him and, not wanting his gear to burn, teleports out of harm's way. The golem slams into the river below, evaporating all the water and blanketing the entire castle in thick steam. Now Lloyd wonders if that was the best move since he can't see a damn thing. He taps into his Kai techniques to pinpoint Gizarm's location and finds him not far off but completely still. Lloyd is busy weighing his next move when a panicky Grim urges him to move fast or Gizarm will nail him with Shadow Wolf. Lloyd agrees and jets off, trying to figure out a way to stop his enemy from using Shadow Wolf. Then a thought hits him. He wonders why Gizarm didn't attack him earlier while he was standing still in the steam, and that makes him wonder exactly how Gizarm is tracking him. Lloyd recalls that Gizarm once sent a letter to the Assassin's HQ, warning his underlings that if they hid, he wouldn't be able to track them down. Lloyd figures Gizarm needs a clear view of his teleport spot, so he starts sprinting away, using the thick steam as cover, and orders Grim to stay silent as they follow the demon. Gizarm, stumbling in total darkness, admits that evaporating the river was a clever move by Lloyd, but he's forced to wait for the steam to clear. Then Lloyd, already sneaking up from behind, charges full speed. Before Gizarm can react, Lloyd unveils his secret plan, summoning a horde of clones with earth magic. With a swarm of identical figures surrounding him, Gizarm can't tell which one is real, so he deliberately lets one hit him. All the clones converge and attack, but Gizarm quickly discerns the one that struck with a genuine blade, guessing it's the true Lloyd. He stabs that clone with dark spears, and the wound heals instantly. He smirks, remarking that physical attacks are useless on him, as he regenerates even if his heart or brain is crushed. Rising, he pulls aside Lloyd's clones and crushes them with his bare hands, explaining that he even hardened his body to block any blow, and he let a clone hit him on purpose to pinpoint the real one. Yet, the clones still circle around him. Then, Gizarm suddenly notices that the body he attacked earlier was also a decoy, leaving him baffled that Lloyd passed the real sword to one of his clones. Perplexed, he scans for the true Lloyd, suspecting the real one might be flying overhead. Out of his blind spot, a fierce flame attack comes crashing in. The genuine Lloyd had been hiding among the clones. After landing a hit, he swiftly shuffles the decoys to mask his position, leaving Gizarm reeling from the unexpected strike. He summons a fresh batch of clones from the earth, and these decoys even talk to confuse their enemy further. Gizarm quickly regenerates from the fire damage and snaps his fingers to teleport a brand new set of clothes onto himself. He can teleport objects if he knows their precise location, even without seeing them. But now that he can't tell which Lloyd is real, his signature move Shadow Wolf is rendered useless. So he opts to go all out and obliterate every clone at once. He creates hundreds of dark spears above him and fires them in all directions, pulverizing the clones. One of the spears is caught by a barrier, and Gizarm immediately realizes that it belongs to the real Lloyd. He teleports behind that target and crushes its head, only to find it was a decoy too. Intrigued, Gizarm continues his relentless onslaught, dismantling most of the clones while plotting how to flush out the genuine Lloyd. Then he bursts into laughter, declaring that fighting this human kid is far more entertaining than battling an entire army of demons. The clones persist in attacking while he keeps neutralizing them. All the while, the real Lloyd moves toward him unseen under an invisibility spell. A dark spear whizzes dangerously close and grazes Lloyd's cheek, but Lloyd keeps pressing forward. Grim panics because Lloyd has not set up a proper barrier and is charging directly toward Gizarm amid the chaos. Lloyd recalls that he named his magic sword Spell Taker, a blade capable of absorbing any spell to boost his mana or analyze its structure. He had hoped it would help him study magic more efficiently, and it's proving to be more valuable than he ever imagined. Lloyd slashes through the teleportation circle that was still concealing him from Gizarm, and as the sword deciphers the spell, he suddenly finds himself in a space surrounded by nothing but intricate magical symbols. He hollers out to Jade to check if he's still around. He tells him that Ren and the others are there and that he wants to be his friend. Suddenly, the darkness surrounding Lloyd parts, revealing a bright space ahead that compresses the dark magic symbols into tiny pockets. Captivated by the sight, Lloyd finally figures out the secret of teleportation magic and what he must do next. In an instant, all his clones turn to stone, and he drops the invisibility spell he had been under. Gizarm is stunned to see that Lloyd was hiding invisibly, and the cut on his face shows he wasn't even using a proper barrier. He grins and tells the kid he must be tired of playing with dolls. Lloyd calmly responds that he finally understands, and Gizarm remarks that it is better late than never, convinced that Lloyd now knows he can never win against him. Gizarm then states that Lloyd is fighting for a bunch of fools. He insists that Lloyd isn't like ordinary humans but more like him, and invites him to join his side with a promise of fun while taking over the world. Lloyd simply sighs and calls Gizarm as dumb as a beast, who's satisfied with the raw strength he was born with and never bothers to understand its source. Lloyd explains that although humans are indeed weak, they create wonders with their desires, forming bonds and magic. He smiles, saying that every spell is rooted in desire, and since desires are infinite, magic is endlessly fascinating. Gizarm declares he doesn't care and teleports to attack Lloyd. Lloyd quickly counters by punching him in the gut as soon as he appears beside him. Gizarm can only scream in agony as his bones are crushed, and he collapses to the ground, gagging and foaming. Lloyd mocks him by saying he didn't even use mana for that blow, it was simply a Kai-infused punch. Gizarm fails to grasp his words, and Lloyd explains that magic learns from every field of knowledge and evolves even further. He settles down in front of Gizarm and calmly asks what his next move will be. He mocks the demon, goading him to hurry up and use his dark spears or cursed speech, insisting they're nothing special. Gizarm flies into a rage and stands up, laughing at Lloyd's nerve to talk to a demon like that. Lloyd then asks if Gizarm remembers the last words Jade spoke before dying. Gizarm recalls that desperate, withered Jade had promised he'd lose just before he died. That memory infuriates Gizarm, and he curses both Jade and Lloyd as he teleports in to attack. Lloyd immediately kicks him as soon as Gizarm appears, sending him screaming and rolling on the ground. Lloyd takes off after him and unleashes a barrage of fierce, Kai-infused kicks that drag Gizarm across the earth. Gizarm tries to teleport away, but Lloyd is right there and lands a brutal kick to his mouth. Gizarm tries to steady himself and rethink his strategy, but Lloyd gives him no room to breathe. He spins Gizarm around by the leg and slams him to the ground before pounding him relentlessly. Gizarm teleports away again, but Lloyd seems to know exactly where he'll reappear and kicks him in the face as soon as he pops back up. Gizarm crashes into a nearby boulder, shattering it, and Lloyd then uses double casting to launch a mighty attack that propels Gizarm through the castle wall and into a gaping hole created earlier. Gizarm continues screaming in pain until another vicious kick from Lloyd sends him plummeting toward the magma below. Knowing that a fall into magma would be fatal even for him, Gizarm attempts to teleport away. But Lloyd appears at every spot he tries to vanish to, repeatedly knocking him upward. Frustrated, Lloyd asks the battered demon if he has any other tricks left. If not, then Gizarm will have to face his end. Finally, Gizarm snaps and warns Lloyd not to underestimate a demon lord. He reveals his ultimate technique. As a demon lord, he can manipulate the ambient mana at will, gathering it into a massive black sphere. He tells Lloyd that no matter what, his greatest attack is one Lloyd simply cannot defend against. Gizarm hurls the dark sphere at Lloyd, but Lloyd doesn't seem too bothered. Instead, he casually lifts his hand and makes it vanish. Gizarm is in shock over what just happened to his signature move, so he demands an explanation from Lloyd, but there's really nothing to explain. Lloyd simply nullified it using the same technique. Gizarm can't wrap his head around the idea that a human like Lloyd could pull off such a mighty spell, yet Lloyd proves him wrong right then and there. A few years back, he picked up this spell while devouring every magic book he could get his hands on. After a night of causing mountains to explode with it, Lloyd got curious about what might happen if he cast 2 copies of the spell simultaneously. To satisfy that curiosity, he set up a massive collision of spells. Gizarm still finds it hard to believe that Lloyd could manage something like that, especially since using the spell even once guzzles a ridiculous amount of mana. But when Lloyd made the spells collide, they just fizzled out into nothing. If he had to describe his reaction, he'd say he was as let down as he is now by Gizarm's lack of any new tricks. Gizarm launches into a tirade, insisting that a mere mortal shouldn't talk back to him with such disrespect. Meanwhile, Lloyd isn't even listening, he's busy sneezing. Gizarm finds that even more infuriating, so he teleports right behind Lloyd and grabs his head. However, he instantly regrets it as he gets a first-hand taste of the raw power Lloyd wields. Frozen in terror, Gizarm watches as Lloyd reveals he has one more thing to test. He wonders aloud if the Void spell can kill a demon like him. Without hesitation, Lloyd summons a cluster of Void spells that close in on Gizarm. Gizarm tries to teleport away, but since Lloyd has nailed the teleportation tracking, he still manages to land a hit. Back on the ground, thanks to all the fog, the demons couldn't see a thing. But Luru, Shiro, and Silpha kept on fighting using their sharp sense of smell. As she sliced through the demons, she noticed they were oddly weaker than before. Ren explained it was because of her poison. She was trying her best to hit only the demons, though her control wasn't perfect. So Silpha had to be careful about taking too many deep breaths. Albert, on the other hand, couldn't do much without his sight and was just waiting for sunrise to bring some light. When he checked his watch, he was shocked to see that it was already morning, even though the sky stayed dark for some reason. High above the castle, Lloyd's mana still blanketed the area, and Gizarm was being sucked into the void spell Lloyd had cast. No amount of regeneration was going to help him. Realizing he was doomed if things continued, Gizarm decided to ditch his body and make a run for it. But Jade's body clung on and wouldn't let him go. Out of options, Gizarm started playing mind games, pretending to be Jade to bait Lloyd into releasing him. But Lloyd was too sharp for that and doubled down on the spell, crushing Gizarm and finishing him off once and for all. Once Lloyd was sure Gizarm was dead, he concealed his mana again and let daylight finally shine. As Ren looked up at the sky, she recalled a time when Jade had told them stories about Lloyd. Rumors had swirled about the 7th Prince of Saloum, even though Lloyd wasn't a contender for the throne. There were plenty of wild tales about him. One tale even mentioned a huge explosion on the day he was born. The castle tried to cover it up by calling it a gender reveal party gone wrong, but Jade swore it was really Lloyd unleashing a spell as soon as he was born. Most of the others found it hard to believe, though Jade still thought it was one cool story. If someone could be naturally gifted enough to work magic from birth, maybe Lloyd could someday help them shake off their curses and finally live in the light. Back then it was just a joke, but none of them ever imagined it would turn out this way. After everything was settled, Lloyd and Grimm teamed up to build a memorial for Jade. Grimm wonders if it's really okay for the memorial to be so far from the others. Lloyd says it fits since there's nobody left to bury and it's more about remembering him. Grim then changes the subject, saying he's really impressed that Lloyd managed to hit Gizarm with the Void spell even though it moves pretty slowly. Lloyd explains it was all about analyzing the teleportation to know exactly when it was going to trigger. Once he figured that out, he simply linked it to his reflexes so he could dodge any attack and chase Gizarm whenever he tried to escape. That doesn't mean the fight was easy for him. Gizarm was definitely strong and could have killed Lloyd if he slipped up even once. It was a reckless move to try and analyze the teleportation in the middle of the fight. But Lloyd had to do it if he wanted to land a hit on Gizarm. More than anything, he wasn't satisfied until he figured out how teleportation really worked. Yet he can't even claim credit for discovering it since everything was already set up for him. In his final moments, Jade had transcribed the teleportation spell and left it behind, knowing someone would eventually use it to kill Gizarm. In the end, it was Jade who really saved the day. A while later, Albert shows up and asks who the grave is for. Lloyd can't explain, but Albert says he already knows. It's the grave of the former leader of the Assassin's Guild and the previous ruler of Lordos Jade. The Assassin's Guild told him they heard about Jade's revolt and asked for Lloyd's help. Lloyd just goes along with it since the guild spun the story to cover for him. According to what they told Albert, Lloyd even helped defeat the demon that had possessed Jade's body. But even if their intentions were pure, they still made a living by killing all this time, and they essentially kidnapped a member of the royal family to force him into a war. These charges are serious enough to warrant execution, but they insist they're ready to atone for their sins by serving Lloyd for the rest of their lives, and they mean it. So Albert asks Lloyd one simple question: this isn't just about taking in a pet or something trivial. If Lloyd agrees to have the Assassin's Guild as his retainers, every move they make becomes his responsibility, and he'll be held accountable for any harm they cause. Lloyd tells him he understands and is willing to take on that duty from now on. This is the first time anyone has seen Lloyd show genuine care for others. Albert reminds him that just because he's the 7th prince doesn't mean people don't care about him or his actions. Beyond being a prince, he's first and foremost Albert's beloved little brother, and that bond runs deep, maybe even a bit too deep. Just then, Tao comes running in after hearing that Lloyd was in trouble and rushes over, only to realize she's already missed all the action. Feeling embarrassed, she turns to leave while Albert chases after her because he never got the chance to thank her properly last time, and soon everyone follows him. When they're alone, Grim remarks that he's surprised Lloyd has such a gentle side. Lloyd denies any sentimentality, saying he's only taking in the Assassin's Guild because they possess special mana that could lead to new magical discoveries. Grim, however, knows Lloyd truly cares about them. Otherwise, he wouldn't have bothered building a grave for Jade. Eventually, the Assassin's Guild members are freed since Lloyd promised to take responsibility for them, and they vow to serve him with everything they've got to repay his kindness. After that, Albert decides to host a tea party because Tao had requested one a while back. But now that it's happening, she feels a bit nervous with half the royal family present. Albert tells her there's no need to worry about formalities since this is meant to be a celebration, so everyone should just focus on having fun. That settles Tao enough to relax, though Silpha still isn't fond of her and purposely spills tea on Tao, sparking a fight between them. Albert also tells the Assassin's Guild there's no reason for them to hold back since he knows they prefer laid-back parties, so they get loud and drunk in honor of Jade. In the midst of it all, Crow starts crying over Jade's grave while Tao, who never really knew him, can sense he was cute. Talia then makes a move on Albert and tries to get him to have a drink with her, but he refuses because he never drinks on official business. Still, Talia won't give up. When Albert declines, she uses her powers to share her drunken state with him. Albert, who tends to get angry when he's drunk, immediately targets Galilei because he still hasn't explained how Lloyd ended up covered in his sticky fluid. Meanwhile, the other girls gather by the castle river, which has turned into a hot spring from all the heat Lloyd generated. As they bathe, Ren turns to Silpha and asks if she can serve as Lloyd's maid just like her. Silpha doesn't have the authority to decide, so she tells Ren to ask Lloyd directly. Lloyd, standing right above Silpha, says it's fine. However, Ren wasn't expecting him to be there. She asks if Lloyd is truly okay with having someone with her poison-blighted condition by his side. He replies that she still has a lot to work on. For example, she shouldn't call herself blighted anymore because once she masters her mana control, she'll be able to determine what kind of poison she makes and could become a great pharmacist with that power. That's when Ren realizes that despite her deadly power, Lloyd has never once seen her as a threat. She promises to serve him with everything she's got. After that, they all return to Saloon Castle, where Ren officially becomes Lloyd's maid alongside Silpha. And once they get Lloyd dressed for the day, he must meet his father to explain everything that happened at Loredost, although he really doesn't want any credit for it. Luckily, Albert did him a favor and took most of the praise, so Lloyd remains free to do whatever he wants and continues studying magic as much as he pleases. The story picks back up with Lloyd already in combat, handling each of his opponent's attacks with sharp precision. His enemy looks like some kind of angel and suddenly charges again, but Lloyd counters fast, using martial arts to redirect the strike. He gets hit and starts bleeding a bit, but this psycho just licks the damn wound like it's no big deal. Heals up, then fries the angel with fire and water magic at the same time. The angel doesn't flinch, brushes the attack off like it's nothing, and summons a ring of magical swords. He calls Lloyd a devil's spawn and warns him it's far too late for regret, but Lloyd doesn't even react to the insult. Then the scene jumps back a bit, showing Ren stepping into Lloyd's room to let him know breakfast is ready. She only finds Grim and Shiro there and glances around, wondering where he disappeared to. Out of nowhere, Lloyd cheerfully greets her, making her nearly jump out of her skin. Turns out he's been training and finally got the hang of hiding his presence using that mana blocking technique she taught him. Ren's honestly impressed, saying it took her a whole year to master that trick. Then starts easing up and praises him with a smile, but then quickly remembers she's supposed to be formal, snapping back into maid mode. Lloyd notices she's still settling in, and mentions it's already been a few days since she started. Ren says a couple days aren't enough to feel comfortable yet, but she's doing her best. Adds that Silpha's been training her non-stop, strict as hell, and learning all the etiquette is no joke. Still, she promises to work hard so Lloyd can be proud of her. Lloyd tells her to take it easy though, and says it's fine to speak normally when it's just the two of them. Right then, Silpha walks in, catching Ren mid-sentence and instantly scolds her for talking informally. Ren apologizes fast, clearly flustered, while Lloyd quietly thinks about how much pressure Ren's been under. Grim, watching from the side, murmurs that most of the others are probably carrying just as much weight. Lloyd then decides it's time to head out and makes his way to Loredost Manor. When he gets there, he sees that Galilee's spider threads are already being used in construction, holding things together way better than expected. Lloyd asks how he's settling into his role as governor, and Galilee says it's still surreal, even his friends can't believe it. He figured Lloyd would be the one to lead, but Lloyd explains his father only gave him the right to choose a governor, not become one. He adds that he trusts Galilee completely and believes this city will turn into a sanctuary for people who love research as much as they do. Grim figures out fast that Lloyd's planning to squeeze every advantage out of this place, though he notes the full repairs might take a while. That's when Babylon shows up, agreeing with him and saying it's no surprise considering how bad the demons trashed everything. Then Galilee jumps in, vowing he'll never let something like that happen again, and Talia suggests they better set up some proper defenses. Grim, being the demon himself, casually suggests they get their hands on divine magic for protection. Suddenly the others freeze, realizing what he just implied. But Grim seems confused at first, then surprised they hadn't noticed until now, and clarifies that divine sorcery is strictly for people who devote themselves to the church. It's basically channeling sacred power into your body to burn away evil. Sounds like pure fantasy, but he swears it actually works. Crow and Talia don't seem interested though. They both say they've always done just fine without blessings or salvation. Then Grim argues that's exactly why they should finally give it a try. But neither of them looks convinced, and even Lloyd hesitates. That's when Grim presses him, asking what exactly happened between him and the church. Lloyd gets a bit defensive, saying Grim's jumping to conclusions, but then admits something did go down, and he got kicked out. He figures maybe the church has forgotten about it by now, considering it's been 2 years. Still, even after everything, he's willing to return if it means unlocking divine magic. Later on, Lloyd heads to the church with Ren, who quietly says she doesn't feel comfortable there. He tells her she doesn't have to come along, but Ren insists she's here to fill in for Silpha, who's off handling other stuff, and besides she wants to spend more time with Lloyd. Babylon tags along too, confirming that Lloyd's whole plan is just to serve the church long enough to gain access to divine sorcery. Lloyd nods and says the sacred magic comes as a reward for faithful service. Babylon complains the whole thing sounds like a massive chore, and Lloyd fully agrees it's gonna be a pain, but there's no other way. When they enter the church, they're welcomed kindly by the priest, who clearly thinks Lloyd is some random visitor. But the second he recognizes him, the priest's whole mood changes, his face darkens, and he furiously demands to know why Lloyd's dared to show his face again, spits out that he'll never forget what Lloyd did 2 years ago, and loudly calls him the spawn of the devil. Babylon gets curious, wondering what the hell Lloyd did to piss off the priest that badly. Escher steps in and gently reminds her father it's been 2 years since the incident, suggesting he should let it go. The priest grumbles that she's too soft, but she calmly brings up his own teachings how forgiveness should follow true repentance, adds that no one else seems to be holding a grudge, yet her father stays stiff until Lloyd suddenly walks up, giving him a puppy dog stare with Shiro copying the same exact face. The overwhelming cuteness shatters the priest's defenses, and he finally offers Lloyd a chance to redeem himself while hugging Shiro like he's never letting go. Later on, Lloyd and the group start their duties at the church, but he quickly loses focus. Within minutes, he ends up breaking a vase and tries to quietly slip out before anyone notices. Escher catches him in the act, asking gently where he's going. He admits to the accident a bit awkwardly, and she quickly checks if he's hurt, clearly relieved when he tells her he's fine. But seeing the shards of stained glass, Escher recognizes it as one of her father's favorite pieces, offers to take the blame. But Lloyd insists he'll own up to it himself. From a distance, Ren and Babylon are watching, both getting the sense that Escher's soft demeanor is throwing Lloyd completely off his rhythm. Once Lloyd walks off, Ren curiously asks why he seems so out of it. Escher laughs softly, explaining that Lloyd's always been like this, driven and honest, but easily distracted when magic's involved. She figures he probably came back just to learn divine sorcery. And though Ren and Babylon play dumb, the assumption hits a little too close. Escher then starts reminiscing, saying Lloyd used to break vases all the time when they were kids, remembers one moment clearly he'd knocked over another one, and when she asked if he was okay, he looked totally serious and told her she should punish him with divine magic. She chuckled at the time, reminding him that such power couldn't be used lightly unless evil was involved. Instead, she suggested they sing a hymn together, but by the time she finished speaking, he'd already disappeared without a word. Then, after a while, a demon suddenly attacked the church, forcing everyone to evacuate fast. In the middle of the panic, Escher spotted Lloyd standing way too close to the demon, completely unaware of the pile of debris falling right at him. Without a second thought, she ran over and shoved him out of the way, taking the hit herself. Lloyd instantly checked on her, asking if she was okay, but she didn't even mention her injuries and instead asked if he was hurt. He told her he was fine, but the sight of her bleeding left him overwhelmed with guilt, knowing damn well it was all his fault. Not long after, Lloyd came clean and admitted he was the one who summoned the demon, which made the priest furious. He kicked him out of the church on the spot. Escher remembered everything clearly, the damage he caused, the way people started whispering that he was a demon's child. Even then, she never stopped believing in him, saying his voice during hymns always felt sacred. Hoped today would be their chance to sing together again, and planned to invite him to the communion, saying Saria would be there too. After cleaning up the broken vase, Lloyd walked outside and stumbled upon his sister Saria, surrounded by a bunch of thugs. Apparently she had bumped into one of them, but instead of apologizing or backing down, she calmly asked if any of them could play an instrument. When they all looked confused and said they couldn't, she immediately lost interest and turned to walk away. One of them, clearly annoyed, grabbed her arm to stop her, while Lloyd watching from a distance. Then Lloyd explained to the others that Saria was the kingdom's 4th princess, a music prodigy who didn't care about anything unless it had to do with sound or rhythm. Ren and the rest laughed, saying she sounded a lot like him. That's when one of the punks tried to be slick and said they didn't know music, but they could make a girl sing in other ways. Saria wasn't fazed, but when Escher showed up and demanded he let go, the guy turned and groped her chest like a total bastard, making her cry out. Without even blinking, Saria said the scream had decent pitch and might work in a duet. Meanwhile, the priest was stressing out, thinking the recital would have to be cancelled. Lloyd asked what recital, and Babylon explained that Saria and Escher had a performance planned that day, one known to have healing effects. Grimm pointed out it might be a divine spell triggered through music instead of regular mana. That snapped Lloyd into action. He refused to let things fall apart, told Ren to deal with the creeps, and stepped in to fix it himself. At the same time, Saria casually tells the thugs that Escher's earlier cry had decent tone, but the emotion behind it ruined everything. She bluntly adds that the guy sucks at drawing out sound and confidently claims she could make Escher sing way better than that. The thug's face twists with irritation, clearly not caring about being critiqued like a failed performer. But before he can snap back, Ren discreetly casts a spell, releasing a poison cloud that targets only the thugs, the girls, and the priest, knocking them out cold. Grim quietly praises her control, impressed by how she hit only the intended targets. Then Lloyd explains that Ren's using something called Mana Focus, a technique derived from Mana Block, where mana is funneled through a single aperture for tight control. With Mana Focus, spells become sharp and efficient, making it easier to isolate specific targets. Lloyd congratulates Ren for pulling it off and modifying her poison into a non-lethal knockout gas. But before long, the thugs start groaning and waking up, forcing Ren to admit she's still working on adjusting the dosage. She says the formula was meant to briefly put down an average adult male, not hold off troublemakers with thick skulls. Babylon suggests she tweak it for tougher opponents and volunteers to take care of the thugs herself. But Lloyd stops her, says they might get up again if she holds back. So instead, he uses Jade's teleportation spell to relocate them completely. Suddenly, Ren and Babylon both freeze in shock, surprised by how cleanly Lloyd executed it. Then Lloyd shrugs and admits he's not even sure where he sent them, still figuring out the spell's mechanics. Soon after, the priest and the girls start waking up. Lloyd tells them what happened and casually gives Babylon the credit for neutralizing the thugs. Babylon keeps grinning, clearly still pumped about Lloyd's use of Jade's teleportation. Ren comments how wild it is that nobody else saw it happen, saying if Lloyd keeps learning their spells and copies their mana signatures right, he might end up mastering all their techniques before long. As the priest and Escher leave to prepare for the recital, Saria stops by Lloyd for a second, barely remembering his name. Babylon looks confused by the attitude, but Escher explains that Saria never remembers names unless the person plays music. That gets Ren thinking, and she quietly wonders if Lloyd secretly knows how to play an instrument. Escher lights up remembering Lloyd can sing, quickly asking him to join them on stage, but Saria shuts it down right away, saying he hasn't trained enough yet and might throw off their whole recital. Promises they'll perform together as a trio once he's properly prepared, urging him to focus and learn from the show instead. Then Ren suggests they check out more of the church, but Lloyd insists on staying to listen closely. Grim explains there's a good chance divine magic works through rituals instead of typical mana signatures, adding that while regular mana can trigger certain effects, rituals let people use their mana differently through singing or dancing. Not long after, the girls begin their recital and instantly pull everyone in. The performance stirs up emotions, moving some folks to tears. Lloyd's clearly impressed, and Grim confirms that divine magic definitely kicked in. He hands Lloyd a sword to help him analyze the spell better, and Lloyd picks up on something strange. The mana signature feels structured in geometric shapes, unlike anything he's seen before. Notes it resembles health class magic, and asks if Grim's okay being near it. But Grim admits it feels a little off, but reassures him he's fine for now since Escher's mana output is still low. Then Lloyd finds the spell's structure fascinating, even though he can't fully decode it, and Grim's curious what he plans to do next. Suddenly, Lloyd switches topics, saying he's been feeling someone watching them throughout the whole performance. Grim sensed it too, and they both agree it's coming from above, not just the church ceiling, but way higher. Lloyd's eyes light up with excitement at the idea it could be a servant of the gods, and decides to use teleportation magic to chase after that presence. The spell takes way longer than usual, throwing Lloyd off, but he powers through. When they finally land, he finds himself standing on clouds, completely unsure where they are. Grim jokes that they might be dead, but Lloyd's quick to brush it off, saying dying felt way different last time. They start walking toward the direction of that odd gaze until they reach an altar, and right above it stands the very figure that had been watching them from the skies. Lloyd wonders what this creep is plotting, noticing how he's fixatedly leering at Escher and Saria. The angel mumbles under his breath, daydreaming about descending to Earth to cut loose. But suddenly, Lloyd hurls a few cloud orbs suspiciously resembling poop right at his face, which instantly ticks him off, and he yells out, demanding to know who threw them. Seeing it's just some random human, he's baffled, questioning how someone of his kind even got into paradise. He tells Lloyd to remember his place, proudly introducing himself as Jihriel the Angel, attendant to the 64 divine rulers of paradise. He demands to know how they managed to get here, stating paradise is sealed off from the human world, and even if humans tried to force their way in, the barriers between realms should have stopped them. Lloyd isn't inclined to waste his breath on tedious explanations and flat out asks whether Jihariel can teach him some divine sorcery. Jihariel scoffs, musing aloud that Lloyd must have lost his mind after basking in his majestic beauty. He magnanimously gives Lloyd permission to kneel and kiss his shoes, but Grimm snaps at him, telling the angel to stop acting holier than thou and cough up answers, unless he wants them spreading rumors back on Earth about how creepy he is. Jihariel confidently claims nobody would buy that nonsense anyway, and although he can grant divine sorcery, he says it's reserved for those he personally deems worthy. He magnanimously tells Lloyd to clear off peacefully, promising not to punish him for his transgressions if he simply walks away. Jihariel warns he won't ask nicely again, but Lloyd tunes him out and repeats his request to learn some angel spells. Jihariel launches an attack called Luxa at him, but Lloyd blocks it with his barrier without breaking a sweat, making the angel realize Lloyd isn't some weak brat after all. Back on Earth, Ren anxiously wonders where Lloyd vanished to, and Babylon tells her to take it easy, asking whether Lloyd mentioned anything unusual before leaving. Ren remembers Lloyd saying he sensed someone watching them, but Babylon noticed something else altogether. Deciding to investigate, Babylon steps outside, feeling that something is seriously off about the place, and he genuinely hopes nothing bad has happened. Meanwhile in Paradise, Lloyd keeps effortlessly blocking Jihariel's magic, thinking to himself how cool divine magic is. He notices the angel's swords resemble feathers, yet they're sturdy enough to stop steel, and he realizes his sword can't break these spells since they turn into solid objects once summoned. He also can't replicate these attacks with his sword, figuring the angel can keep summoning swords indefinitely as long as he has enough mana. Lloyd admits to himself it's a ridiculously strong ability, and out of curiosity, he decides to test their strength. So he unleashes 4 different elemental spells at once at the angel, forcing him to dodge fast, and Jihariel watches stunned as Lloyd's magic cracks the walls of the heavenly realm. Lloyd then asks Jihariel why he keeps evading, and an irritated Jihariel fires off another strike, only for Lloyd to blink out via teleportation. Jihariel haughtily says he refuses to be tainted by Lloyd's filthy earthborn magic, which is exactly why he's avoiding direct contact. He quickly notices Lloyd is nowhere in sight and smirks, wondering if the pesky kid finally bailed. But soon he spots Lloyd lounging on top of his sacred altar, casually musing aloud how he's supposed to test things properly when Jihariel won't even take a single hit. Jihariel declares with full confidence that Lloyd's strikes will never reach him, bragging he'll sidestep every single one. Lloyd calmly tells him dodging is off the table now, casting his Shadow Wolf to warp 4 distinct elemental blasts straight at Jihariel at the same time. Jihariel still manages to slip past them, making Lloyd question whether he messed up the timing or the teleport range. Grimm realizes right away that Lloyd is copying Gizarm's earlier move, warping raw mana straight onto a target, except Lloyd's version is much more potent and a lot more versatile. Grimm says the technique is pretty impressive, but warns Lloyd it's highly dangerous, noting that if he keeps this up, this angel might wind up a ghost. Lloyd assures him it'll be fine since Jihariel said his Luxa is unbreakable. Sure, these blasts won't be enough to shatter it. Grimm nervously suggests Jihariel might have been bluffing, but Lloyd tells him to relax, clarifying he's not planning to use the spell the way Grimm thinks. He adds that he won't misuse Jade's abilities like that, and Grimm is truly relieved to hear it. Lloyd then warps a flame spell right in front of Jihariel, but Jihariel slips away again without effort. Grimm yells at Jihariel to stop acting smug and just teach Lloyd the divine sorcery already, stressing they have no intention of killing him. Jihariel however doubles down, insisting his Luxa is untouchable, boasting their pathetic little tricks will never work on him. Lloyd admits out loud that this approach has a few weak points, realizing he needs to change tactics if he wants to land a clean hit. He tries placing his spells even closer to Jihariel this time and casts again, but Jihariel still glides out of the way. Lloyd realizes the problem isn't the placement, it's that the moment the spells appear, the angel has just enough time to dodge. He figures tagging a moving target in this way is nearly impossible, realizing that teleporting the spell before activation isn't cutting it, so he decides he has to warp it at the exact instant it activates. Jihariel then rushes him to strike, and Lloyd puts the new plan into play immediately, landing a direct hit. Jihariel is completely baffled, wondering how Lloyd is suddenly able to cast spells this insanely fast, realizing this is nothing like what he was doing before. Grimm impatiently tells Jihariel to just apologize already and get it over with, but Jifreel arrogantly refuses, confidently boasting that his Luxa might be cracked, but it's infinite and can regenerate endlessly. Lloyd's eyes light up with curiosity at hearing that, excitedly wondering aloud just how infinite Jifreel's regeneration is. Jifreel instantly panics, realizing he's just dug his own grave with his bragging, quickly backtracking and nervously claiming his Luxa isn't actually all that impressive after all. In desperation, Jifreel hurriedly throws up a Luxa barrier around himself, offering Lloyd one last chance to retreat safely, and he even desperately sweetens the deal, promising Lloyd an autograph and permission to kiss his feet if he just leaves him alone now. But Lloyd's not even listening, calmly surrounding Jifreel on all four sides with multiple spells. Completely terrified, Jifreel finally blurts out an apology, admitting he was lying earlier, and that his Luxa isn't infinite at all. But Lloyd is past listening, and simply hits him with the spell anyway. After the spell hits, Lloyd is surprised to see Jifreel collapsed on the ground, looking like a freaking ghost. Grimm calmly explains that angels, like demons, are actually ethereal beings made entirely of mana. From these tests, Lloyd realizes Jifreel's Luxa isn't really infinite or invincible. It's just a skill that uses mana to create and maintain weapons, meaning, as long as the caster has enough mana, they can keep regenerating them weekly. Jifreel compliments Lloyd's fighting skills, but says it's too late now because he's fading away, and Lloyd has lost his only chance to learn divine sorcery. Not giving up, Lloyd suddenly floods Jifreel with a huge burst of mana, confidently assuring him that this will fix him up in no time. Jifreel gets shocked and reminds Lloyd that he literally tried to kill him just minutes ago, but Lloyd casually brushes it off, insisting he doesn't care and only wants to learn divine sorcery from him. Then a moment later, Jifreel is transformed into a chubby little giant, and Lloyd is genuinely confused, asking Grimm what just happened. So Grimm plainly explains that Lloyd obviously gave Jifreel way too much mana. So Jifreel becomes completely surprised by how much mana this seemingly innocent kid possesses, and secretly plots how he can exploit this opportunity. He figures he can use this moment to finally descend to Earth and openly tells Lloyd he'll gladly teach him divine sorcery. Jifreel then eagerly says that they need to form a pact first, reaching out to shake Lloyd's hand, thinking he's found the perfect chance to possess Lloyd's body under the cover of forming a pact. Jifreel excitedly imagines getting to visit all his favorite girls down on Earth, especially Saria and Escher. Grimm instantly guesses what's running through his perverted mind, watching as Jifreel tries to possess Lloyd. But just like Grimm before him, he pathetically finds himself stuck, possessing only Lloyd's hand. Grimm bursts out laughing at Jifreel's failure, telling him he seriously messed up big time. He explains that no matter how much mana Jifreel expected Lloyd to have, this kid's got way more juice than he can handle. The angel only managed to possess a single palm, just like Grimm himself did before. Jifreel immediately guesses that Grimm probably tried the same thing and got stuck too, feeling kind of humiliated now. Lloyd then innocently asks if the pact is finally complete, oblivious to Jifreel's embarrassment. Jifreel composes himself and explains that divine sorcery works by engraving an angel's unique mana signature onto the caster's soul, creating a path activated by song or another trigger. Lloyd awkwardly asks if he really has to do the singing part, sounding less than thrilled at the idea. But Jifreel tells him that luckily, since he's already merged with Lloyd's hand, their pact is permanently active, and Lloyd only has to call out with his soul to use the power. As Lloyd tries calling out, he suddenly experiences a vivid vision filled with the mysterious symbols from the sorceress language he saw before. Instead of logically learning the spells step by step, he now intuitively grasps divine sorcery at an instinctual level, and he's absolutely blown away by how incredible it feels. Grimm silently thinks to himself that Jifreel probably has no clue what he's done, because now that Lloyd fully understands divine sorcery, he has enough raw power to dominate both Paradise and the Netherworld. Lloyd could easily take over the throne of the Demon Lord if he felt like it. Yet Lloyd surprisingly just sighs, looking disappointed that learning divine sorcery was way too easy. Jifreel can't believe Lloyd's reaction, genuinely puzzled why anyone would feel disappointed about achieving ultimate power so effortlessly. Lloyd explains that he actually enjoys the entire journey, not just the end result. He loves breaking down magic, studying spell books until they practically fall apart, and questioning why each spell works. Sometimes he even feels like he can glimpse the faces of those who created these spells long ago. To Lloyd, the process itself has value, so achieving power too quickly feels kind of empty. But then Lloyd eagerly jumps back to divine sorcery, asking if Jihriel's famous Luxa spell falls under this same category. Jihriel confirms that it does, mentioning that Luxa appears differently based on who's casting it. He instructs Lloyd to try conjuring a sword first, just to get a feel for it. As Lloyd focuses, Jihriel quietly reflects that he initially wondered why this kid traveled all the way to paradise just to seek divine sorcery. But now that he's linked with Lloyd, he can sense his pure, sincere emotions directly. It reminds him of someone he deeply respected in the distant past, someone whose kindness and determination left a mark on him. Suddenly, Jihriel snaps out of his thoughts when he notices Lloyd's Luxa manifesting, except it's nothing like a simple sword. Instead, Lloyd has somehow summoned the freaking Godzilla. Grim and Jihriel stare at the thing in absolute terror as it continues to swell uncontrollably. Grim desperately pleads with Lloyd to stop whatever the hell he's doing, but Lloyd calmly replies that he's still working on it. Jihriel watches in shock, unable to believe Lloyd is still constructing the damn thing. He had always known that Lux's shape changed depending on the nature and quantity of the mana, but he never imagined it had become something as freakish as this. Jihriel tries to reassure himself, thinking maybe it resembles the radiant wings of an archangel. But Grim bluntly interrupts, saying it looks nothing like that, and begs Jihriel to snap out of it already and stop Lloyd before this freaking Godzilla grows even bigger. Meanwhile, back down in the human world, Babylon carefully follows the unusual scent he's been tracking, eventually arriving at a peaceful rose garden. He tries to pinpoint the exact source, impressed by how the fragrance of the roses nearly manages to conceal it. Fortunately for him, his sense of smell is incredibly sharp, and normally he's not the type to poke his nose into suspicious stuff like this. But he suspects this scent might actually be connected to the divine sorcery Lloyd's currently after. Suddenly, a pastor approaches him, kindly asking if he's lost and offering to escort him back to the recital hall. Babylon smoothly covers by mentioning he's always admired roses and wandered here because he caught their scent. He politely hopes the pastor doesn't mind him exploring for a bit, but the pastor smiles, gently remarking it's quite a shame since Babylon probably came here to enjoy the performance. Babylon then curiously asks why the pastor himself isn't attending, to which he humbly replies he's simply a clergyman whose responsibility is guiding parishioners who've strayed off course. Though amusingly, even after years of service, the pastor admits he's prone to getting turned around in his own church occasionally. Babylon quietly thinks it's pretty ironic for someone who's constantly getting lost to be guiding others. Out loud, he lightly teases the pastor, wondering if perhaps this clumsiness is why he's not wearing his rosary, and casually mentions he'd been informed that members of the clergy are required to keep their rosaries on at all times. He quickly adds he's just a new arrival himself, but was still handed one immediately. The pastor, clearly embarrassed, quickly acknowledges his mistake and pulls out his rosary, admitting sheepishly that he's always forgetting to put it on. He encourages Babylon not to follow his sloppy example, reminding him gently that certain rules shouldn't be broken. He then solemnly explains that even this rose garden is considered sacred ground, not meant to be casually stepped into, prompting Babylon to sincerely apologize and explain he's still learning his way around. At that very moment, Shiro and Ren arrive, and Ren quickly asks Babylon if there's an issue. She gently reminds him that the recital's almost over, but the second Shiro spots the pastor, he immediately becomes hostile. Babylon then casually remarks to the pastor that he must be incredibly faithful, joking that either he meticulously polishes his rosary daily or he barely ever wears it, since it looks brand spanking new. The pastor calmly agrees, brushing it off as he eyes Shiro, complimenting the beast's fine fur and noting that he's clearly well cared for. Then he moves slightly, clearly planning to take some action. But Lloyd suddenly teleports into the area before he has the chance. Lloyd questions them about why they're all here instead of watching the performance, but they're quick to counter with their own questions about where exactly he's been. Lloyd gently pushes past the pastor to reach his companions, and Shiro excitedly rushes into his arms. The group then heads back towards the recital, but Jihriel immediately recognizes who the pastor truly is. Meanwhile, at the church, Escher warmly asks Lloyd if he enjoyed the recital, and Lloyd enthusiastically praises it, claiming he watched every second from beginning to end. Escher gets confused and points out that the recital had to be stopped halfway through due to sudden thunder, while Jihriel eagerly anticipates finally getting to meet both Saria and Escher face to face. Babylon then curiously asks Escher if the inner garden is regarded as holy ground, and she confirms it is, explaining it's frequently used as a burial site for beloved pets of church members. Babylon quietly ponders if that was actually the source of the foul smell he detected, wondering if perhaps he's just overly suspicious due to his past life as an assassin. He eventually decides he's just imagining things, as the recital concluded peacefully, noting that even Lloyd appears unconcerned. Still, a handful of troubling questions remain unanswered in his mind. Lloyd then politely informs the father that he's preparing to leave the church now, and Babylon quickly realizes Lloyd likely found whatever he was searching for. Babylon figures the church's future isn't his problem anymore and attempts to exit quietly, but Escher stops him, sincerely thanking him for helping her earlier that afternoon. Back in the inner garden, the pastor angrily kicks dirt onto his rosary, muttering bitterly about how annoyingly clean it looks. He recalls having misplaced his original rosary and recently acquiring this new replacement. Suddenly, a hidden entrance creaks open, and an unsettling creature slowly emerges from the darkness. The pastor calmly tells the creature there's no need to chase after Lloyd's group, but he orders heightened security, emphasizing they can't afford distractions now that the crucial day draws near. The next morning, Jihriel shows Lloyd's friends how to handle the Luxa spell, and Lloyd points out he needs them for his research. So he asks Jihriel to create a path for them so they won't have to keep performing rituals. Jihriel clearly isn't happy about having to teach Luxa, but Lloyd reminds him that his looks make him stand out too much, then asks if he can shrink down the way Grimm does. Jihriel changes shape into a bird and asks what Lloyd thinks of the new look, but Lloyd just brushes him off and ignores it. Jihriel then explains that Escher used a purification class, a kind of divine sorcery that heals wounds and wipes out evil creatures. Right then, the thugs from before show up and are shocked to see Lloyd. They start throwing threats, and it's revealed they work for Galilei, who offers to cut off his own finger as an apology. Talia comments that the people of Lordost don't have any manners, and Crow points out they follow whoever is strongest. Just then, the thugs wonder why everyone is being so respectful to Lloyd, and as they gear up to rough him up, Lloyd casts his glow spell. Suddenly, the light overwhelms them, changes their attitude instantly, and they drop to their knees to apologize for everything. They even say they'll make amends with Saria and Escher too. Jihriel realizes the thugs had laid hands on them, so he gets fired up and wants to punish them. But Grimm steps in to stop him. He's confused why Ren and Babylon didn't realize who these thugs were, and Talia explains it's because they haven't really been around the group lately. Meanwhile, over at the church, Babylon stayed behind, and everyone's glad he did since his cooking is incredible. The pastor though complains that Lloyd took off after just a single day. We also see that Jihriel taught Babylon divine sorcery as well, and Lloyd asked him to handle things in his absence. When Lloyd gets back home, Jihriel is happy he chose to stay with him because life with Lloyd is amazing. Suddenly another Lloyd shows up, leaving Jihriel confused, but Grimm explains it's just a wooden doll created by Lloyd to take care of simple chores for him. Lloyd then says they should go out for some ghoul hunting, explaining that fighting the undead is the best way to test divine sorcery, and he already knows where to find them. That's when Silpha appears, and Lloyd immediately asks her to join the hunt, and she quickly gets ready to head out with him. Before long, they head over to the Great Dean Bridge, the spot where ghouls are rumored to lurk, but Ren has a hard time believing they're hiding there since the place looks like it's full of life. Lloyd asks Silpha if she can use her senses to pick out the lair, but she shakes her head, saying the stench of their rotting flesh is too similar to food waste for her to tell the difference. Right then, Saria and Escher show up and ask Lloyd if he wants to grab pancakes with them, and Grimm reminds him they still need to track down the ghouls. Lloyd, however, lights up at the thought of pancakes and decides to go along with Saria and Escher. While Grimm admits it's the first time he's ever seen Lloyd so enthusiastic, Lloyd explains that pancakes are so good they taste like magic, and when Saria gives him tips on how to eat them, Grimm realizes they share the same favorite food. Everyone digs in and enjoys the pancakes, and Escher asks Lloyd and Silpha what brought them to town. They explain they're out hunting ghouls, so Escher reveals that countless people have taken refuge inside the church after being attacked. Then she lays out the spots where they've been seen. She also says the adventurers who were sent to clear them out never came back, which makes Lloyd wonder what exactly happened to them. Saria chimes in that she doesn't want their recital to be cancelled, and Ren asks if she'll be singing again. Escher explains that the event will be massive since both the king and the pope are going to attend. After that, Ren becomes determined to wipe out the ghouls because she doesn't want them ruining people's lives. Silpha points out that the Great Dean Bridge has had the most sightings, and Ren still can't picture ghouls hiding there, but Lloyd suggests they could be down in the sewers. Silpha says the place reeks, but Lloyd insists on checking it out since he's worried about the missing adventurers. He adds that he first heard about the ghouls from an adventurer who mentioned them, and suddenly Tao hugs him tight, realizing he was worried about her. Silpha smacks her and points out that he only came to test his divine sorcery on the ghouls, so she's nothing more than an extra. Lloyd starts to wonder if the ghouls might be hiding in the sewers, and Tao explains she couldn't find anything earlier and ended up getting lost, though she managed to get out once she sensed his presence. She mentions she can't channel Kai in this place, so she thinks about heading back. But Lloyd says it won't be an issue and uses his Purification class divine sorcery to clear away the miasma. From there, they begin exploring the sewers, and his friends quickly realize his magic has cleansed the entire area. Tao points out she doesn't feel drained anymore, while Grim mutters that the glow is painful for him. Tao then realizes she can channel Kai now that the air is purified, so she activates her detection skill and manages to track the ghouls' hideout. She even puts on a maid outfit as she leads everyone toward the spot. Shiro starts scouting around but accidentally steps outside the range of Lloyd's spell, and the miasma makes it hard for him to breathe. Still, he pushes through, while Lloyd thinks he can't pick up the scent, so he considers using his own detection skill right before Tao cuts him off, asking how he plans to mimic her technique. Silpha smacks her, sparking an argument, and Tao asks why she didn't bring her sword. Silpha answers that she wants to keep it clean. Just then Tao figures this is the perfect chance to challenge her, but Silpha isn't interested, until Tao suddenly says the winner gets a date with Lloyd. That makes Silpha step in, and Ren immediately says she wants to join too. Then a horde of ghouls comes charging after Shiro, and Tao declares that whoever kills the most ghouls will be the winner. The girls get ready for the fight, and Lloyd responds by shaping Luxa weapons with his divine sorcery, wanting them to test out his creations in real combat. Tao then leaps into the fight and cuts down 4 ghouls, but Silpha suddenly steps in and starts stealing her kills. She quickly matches Tao's score, and Tao yells at her to quit tailing her. But Silpha says she's only testing her Luxa weapon. She adds that Tao's kills don't even count since she isn't using her Luxa gauntlet, so the two of them keep bickering while snatching kills from each other. They look evenly matched, but Ren is lagging behind because she's just fighting half-heartedly. Then it hits her that she wants a date with Lloyd too, so she enchants her blade with poison to boost it. But the knife suddenly shatters as she goes for a strike. Lloyd realizes divine sorcery gets weaker once it's tampered with, and he thanks her for sparking an idea as he hands her a new weapon. At first she thinks it's no different from before, but when she slices a ghoul, it instantly disintegrates. She figures out it was poisoned, but Lloyd explains he actually altered his divine sorcery. Grim adds that the knife isn't coated with poison. It spreads a purifying effect after scratching the target. He sees that divine sorcery itself is about to evolve now that Lloyd's using it, and the girls keep tearing through the ghouls. Their scores end up tied, and the match heats up as they notice the horde is nearly wiped out, until a monster suddenly crashes in and blasts them all away. Right after, we cut to a shadowy man choking the pastor. Muttering that security in this place needs to be tightened, he commands a wraith to possess the pastor's body so it can roam inside the church. Escher panics when she sees this and demands to know what the man is doing. Thank you for watching to the end. If you enjoyed this recap, please hit the like button and subscribe. If you have any suggestions or tweaks, share them in the comments. They help me improve.